I'm so happy to see many people from different parts of Greater from New Jersey, from Delaware. It's a wonderful occasion today. One of our own, we call hometown hero, Khaleed Ashraf, who grew up together for 3 decades. He's half in Bangladesh, half in India. We want to know about Khaleed's vision. Khaleed, most of you may not know that after finishing his master's in MIT and PhD in Ukraine, he taught 25 years, and in 2015 he went back to Bangladesh. Why? Because most people like him, who's very talented, want to contribute to the Bangladesh he came from. It's very difficult to go there, but I have to thank the CETA connecting God and the children. So this opportunity, most people do not get it. And Khaleed, we are very proud of him, and also like to know about his work and his vision. So this small gathering, I'm seeing here all the major leaders of our communities here, different organizations that represent. Also Khaleed's friends and Hasina's friends are here today. A couple came from New York. So I'm so happy that we should share such a remarkable person, his achievement and his vision. So I'd like to invite Shilpa Mehta, good friend of Khaleed, and she's going to read over some sketch of Khaleed and also share some of her personal points that she'd like to share. Shilpa, thank you. Sorry, Khaleed, please come. No, please come here. He's so humble. I never saw him wearing a tie ever. So he's always like that. But that's what we learn from him. Thank you, Shaptak.
Yeah, okay. Can you hear me? Yes, okay, yes. Okay, I'm going to try and make this brief, but that means I might have to hurry through a bit, so forgive me if a few things get garbled in the process. I have a feeling that over the course of this next hour to hour and a half, Khaleed's achievements, his story, his history will come out automatically because lots of people have lots of things to say. But just to make it official, let me tell you who this individual is. Kazi Khaleed Ashraf is an architect, urbanist, academic, and writer. He's now the Director General of Bengal Institute of Architecture, Landscapes and Settlements in Dhaka. Our paths, Kazi's and mine, crossed due to the PhD program in architecture at Penn. We both wandered into the same altar, as did others, our eventual colleagues. We all came seeking something, a deep dive, a sustained exploration into thinking, in our case, in thinking about architecture. And we all had done the bachelor, master's route, yet something more beckoned us to be there. For several incredible years, we were wanderers in a rich forest of thought. It was a special kind of indulgence, indeed a privilege, fostered by a supplemental cast of characters. So in saying something about Kazi today, I especially would be remiss if I did not bring Hasina into the conversation. First, then, a few words about her. Kazi was my colleague, through whom I became acquainted with Hasina. Together, we went from colleague to neighbors, friends, compatriots, collaborators, child and pet sitters and mentors, food and film and dance and garden buffs, and so on for many years. Not a week would pass without our paths crossing, on campus certainly, but off campus as well. The latter was sustained by Hasina's graciousness, the spirit of which allows her such a broad embrace of life that all things that come to her are received with a Moby Dick-like gulp, no biased pre-selection. She takes it all in. This is what frees her to see people, be it her children, her husband, her friends, for what they are, and indeed to let them be, mostly. I know of no other mother who has the courage to see her children as transparently as Hasina does hers. There is no emotional hoodwinking. She follows through with the fortitude to let them figure it out. There's a deep practicality in this attitude, and we, Kazi's colleagues, did recognize her as the lone practical one while we indulged in our thoughts. Hasina, the steadfast staff, and we, the wanderers. It has freed Kazi to become a full-fledged wanderer, and I say this with much approval. In wandering, you take the path that you choose, and in so doing, you take in the world at your pace. Our very visual profession endorses such a peripatetic existence. You must travel. You must travel the paths that lead you to see, to encounter, to experience your visual world. It is a full immersion into the experience of architecture in person. Indeed, Kazi has diligently followed this dictum from at least the time that their son Amit was born, and maybe even before that. You should ask Hasina about that story. It's a nice one. As a student at Penn, the paths wandered were more conceptual in nature, initially driven by the desire to include and engage with the Indian subcontinental architectural dialogue, because that was his sphere as well, and because its reins were already being passed on from the likes of Mazar Islam, Doshi, etc., to those who would take them on, and that meant Kazi and his colleagues. This is very much like the first travel and know architecture. It's an obligatory path that you have to travel. But the second one is more about a bigger cause. It's not about yourself, it's much more about a bigger cause. Dr. Zia has told me that a lot of you have Kazi's biography in Bengali on your phones, and if you refer to it, you will see that there is, in 1997, Kazi mentions that he curated a major exhibition on South Asian modernity with James Beluado at the Architecture League of New York. And this is what I'm talking about when I say that this was one of those very early endeavors that Kazi had taken up. He was not required to do this, but he did it. These are only two very initial examples, but you may deduce from that that wandering is a physical and or a mental practice. It is a body and or a mind practice. There have been many very newer meanderings that Kazi has continued to trace, and evidence of that sits on that desk before you. And with each one of these endeavors, the conversation becomes more sophisticated than the last one. With each one, the perspective gets deeper and broader. In making the decision to take such a path, you commit to a steadfast or a full-fledged wandering, and as such, it is a way of being, a consistent and concerted practice, not a random exercise. In the early meanderings came the sense of an obligation. The later ones were sustained by sheer dedication. Kazi has maintained a persistent drive for all these years that I have known him. Yet with each new endeavor, there is more vigor. I compare it to being in a constant third gear mode while driving to crest a hill. Those of you who drive a stick shift will appreciate my analogy. This kind of living or driving is not done for personal gain or material gain. And one of the most seminal decisions that Kazi made in his life was just mentioned by Dr. Zia, and that was that in 2015, after more than 25 years of teaching here in the United States at the University of Hawaii, the University of Pennsylvania, Temple University, Kazi took on a job. It wasn't quite a job, it was a challenge to establish the Bengal Institute of Architecture, Landscapes and Settlement. And I think that was just one of the most phenomenal things that he could have done. And you being Bengalis, I'm sure you're all aware of it on a personal basis. I will wrap up by saying just a few more things. That Kazi himself does not drive, despite my driving analogy, but he does wander. He wanders insatiably, in abundance, in body and in mind. And again, if you refer to his biography and you see the writings that he has put forward, that is the longest paragraph that you have. It is truly staggering to see the amount of writing that Kazi has done, or the wandering as I call it, because it's something you do in body and mind. He has taken the path. He has walked monk-like. There is no complacent resting. It is not a light-hearted endeavor. I think the best compliment I can give to the totality of Kazi's work and to him is indeed to call him a wandering monk, because that is a single-mindedness with which he has pursued this endeavor. I want to end by saying that there are those paths in life that you may not have sought, which present themselves squarely before you. And you have no choice but to traverse these two with the same grace and fortitude. Thank you, Father.
Thank you, Shilpa. It was beautiful. She wanted to talk more, but I had to stop. I said 10 minutes less. Nobody can stop because of so many things, especially in the professional field that you mentioned. So now I'm inviting Khaled. He's presenting his journey and work. So Khaled, next, you're the next.
Right, as an architect, you have to show us your pictures. That's standard practice. But while the arrangement is being made, I can say a few things. First of all, thank you, Shilpa. You put me in place. That's where I should be. Wanderer, wandering monk. I think I don't know how much of it was appreciation, how much of it was chastisement, mild chastisement via my lovely wife Asina, and who also puts me in place. And which is to say that I'm really grateful for the friends that I have, the people I've come across. I did come across a wonderful group of good teachers I have had, both in Bangladesh and here in the United States. And some of the teachers that Shilpa and I have had the opportunity, the great opportunity to have at Penn, which brings us to Philadelphia. So I'm trying to make the connection. But কিছু কিছু বাংলায় বলার চেষ্টা করবো যে ফিলাডেলফিয়া একটা বড় কানেকশন আমার জীবনের, আমার স্ত্রীর জীবনের, তার সাথে ডক্টর জিয়াউদ্দিন আহমেদ সাদেক ভাইয়ের সাথে আমার পরিচয় এবং এর সাথে অনেক কিছু ঘটেছে। তার সাথে বাংলাদেশ, ইউনাইটেড স্টেটস, ব্যাক অ্যান্ড ফোর্থ, and the wandering back and forth has happened with Philadelphia in mind. So, না ঠিক আছে ঠিক আছে So Shilpa, thank you. Because when you are driving, you can't wander, I think, because you're going in one direction. So being walking will help you wander. So I need your notes. After this, please send over the notes. Right. So a few days ago, I came across two words in Chinese. Shaman or Dhamma. Shaman means small fullness, and Dhamma means big fullness. It's two words that are used in Chinese agriculture, especially with rice cultivation. Just the moment before the rice is full, before the rice is full, it's not complete. Purnada lav karen. সেটাকে বলছে shaman, small fullness. এই অনুষ্ঠান করার জন্য অনুষ্ঠানে আমাকে এভাবে যদি বলেন সম্মানিত করার জন্য আমার কাছে মনে হচ্ছে I would prefer small fullness, not the big fullness. The big fullness is kind of a termination, ধানটা পড়ে যায়, it's the end of the this harvesting is done. কারণ এরকম অনুষ্ঠান আমার কাছে মনে হয় যে অনেক সময় মনে হচ্ছে যে is it a kind of completeness, is it a finality, almost like funerary. তো সেটাতে আমি যেতে যাচ্ছি না, এই জন্য আমি মনে করছি যে এটাকে আমি ধরে নিচ্ছি যে it's a kind of small fullness, তার মানে কাজ আরো বাকি আছে। তো সেই জন্য সাদিক ভাই যখন এই অনুষ্ঠানের কথা বললেন, সাদিক ভাইটাকে আর না করা যায় না। আমি রাজি হলাম, তো ইতস্তত করে রাজি হলাম এবং বিব্রত বোধ করেও রাজি হলাম, কারণ এরকম অনুষ্ঠান to kind of bring it around you, I've not done that too much. That's one thing, one point about hesitation. Another point of hesitation is that I can talk about a lot of topics, অনেক বিষয়ে কথা বলতে পারি, and perhaps some of the books which are here and what Shilpa has mentioned. It has been a lot of work, and I can keep talking about one topic or another for a long time, but I really can't talk about myself, and I've tried that before, I really stumble. নিজের বিষয়ে কথা বলা, কিন্তু আজকে এসে কিছুটা বলতে হচ্ছে, তো এটাও একটা ইতস্ততা। তবে রাজি হয়েছে সাদিক ভাই ওনার অনুরোধে বা আমন্ত্রণে। At the same time, I'm very thankful to Bangladesh Association of Delaware Valley, Bangladesh American Community Forum, Bangladesh Potrika, সবাই মিলে এরকম একটা সুন্দর আয়োজন করেছেন। I thank all of you to come on a Sunday lunch time. কতটুকু পাবেন আমি জানি না, তবে I really thank you for coming here. And I really have to mention people by name, কারণ আরেকটা জিনিস আমি একটু গর্ব করে বলতে পারি, বাংলাদেশ কমিউনিটির সাথে তো অবশ্যই আমি জড়িত, but there are other friends here who are here for the first time, and they come from different areas and disciplines which I have had the great honor to be part of also, which in my wandering has led to. I mean, being an architect, I have not stayed within architecture per se. I've strayed and moved around, and therefore I've discovered. If you don't mind, I would like to mention a few names. Mariana Thomas, she's a very well regarded architect in Philadelphia. And Hasina's close friend, and Hasina's worked with her. I would like to mention that. We have Devyani Guha, architect. She's from New York, New Jersey. And Ulrich Kremer, he's here somewhere. Oh, he's here. Yes. I'm wearing Uli's jacket. My jacket is here somewhere. I thought this was much nicer. Thank you, Uli. That's what friends are for. The other thing friends are for also is about, and the way I might have wandered and flourished is because of the friends, They don't let anything go by without, questioning, the bantering. And there are little things. Occasionally they don't mean something serious at one point, but with the bantering, your mind opens up in certain ways. And I think I'm really grateful to this great group of friends. And then we have Safina San from New York and Julia San from New York, both from Dhaka and New York. And I would really like to point out Mahmoud Rahman, Mahmoud Bhai, especially for the Bangladesh community, we have to Namkora Lekhok, translator, he writes in English, very well published. And next to Mahmoud Bhai, I would like to introduce Sharoza Nehrin. She's also a writer, and I'm very happy that they are here. Which is again to kind of, mention the diversity perhaps of things that I try to do. Our Robin Haichu. He's a well-known artist, poet in Philadelphia. Very well known to the community. Thank you for coming, and his wife, Carol. So that's a little bit about the little bit of note of thanks I have to mention. Now, my identity. That's what I was trying to avoid. You just keep on doing what you do. I mean, not even just an architect, you could show your work. Not even just a writer, you could mention your work. But I've kind of, been back and forth and done a few things. And oftentimes, yes, architect, writer, urbanist, critic, historian, it's all very too much for anyone. The image that if you can see that from the back, it's a sketch I made during COVID times in 2020. My desk, perhaps maybe some of it is a little bit staged for the drawing, but more or less it's like this. It gets messy at times, but this is what it is, my station, my world, my station. But this was in the dining table of our dining room, not my study, which I occupied during COVID times. And all the utensils of both writing and drawing here are here. And of course the inevitable laptop with which I kept connection to Dhaka with my colleagues there. Perhaps these three images are an indication in a kind of emblematic way what I do. On the left, building sketch. In the middle, me perhaps, and on the right, the book, the building and the book. So it really boils down between a building and the book, exploring both. And for some of you, I'd like to mention that, I do have a notion of architecture that I have developed, which is not really the conventional sense of architecture, one would say. Of course, I've been trained as an architect in the profession of architecture. I went to architecture school, multiple architecture schools. That was a kind of wandering also, I had to stop. So I see architecture in three ways. That's my own view. Architecture is a profession where you're trained, you learn the tricks, the techniques, and then you become an architect, and you join the community of professionals, and you do buildings or what have you. There's also the sense of architecture as a discipline, which is a broader, which is like, in my view, is a cultural idea. Architecture is part of the cultural sphere, and which does not necessarily belong to just architects. Architecture can be discussed by anybody interested in architecture, a writer, a critic, an anthropologist, and that's what I think architecture is also a discipline. And lastly, I think architecture is a lived experience, meaning that there is no moment in our lives that we're not with or in or around architecture. Right now we are in architecture, we walk out at the little parking lot, that's the kind of an architecture. So our lives are calculated, you might say, with the streams of architecture. So that's a lived experience, and that belongs to everyone, And oftentimes in such situations, architects are a minority. So my work kind of traverses these three domains, I would say, as in terms of an identity. And what I mentioned, being a writer or an architect, I didn't meant to be a writer, but I always thought I was an architect, a designer, I would be like that. But then I ended up in scholarship, in academia. I didn't have to do a PhD, I was just interested in ideas, pursuing ideas, and ideas doesn't belong to, again, one discipline, architecture, sociology, or this or that. It's a crossing boundaries, that's what I did. So, pursuit of an idea. So what I will do now is actually first I will talk about a few of my publications, if you like, but I won't go into the content of each publication. I'll just describe some moments, some backgrounds that are about the book, which I would like to recollect with you. And then maybe I'll show some work that I'm currently doing. This is a book, if you can see the image, from 1997, Architecture in Bangladesh. It's a collection of some beautiful drawings that a group of us in Dhaka had conducted early in the 90s. 80 monuments, and many of those monuments have not been documented before. And very interestingly and very sadly, architecture was being practiced in Bangladesh, but there is no single book by which which even survey the historical monuments of Bangladesh. How can you be studying architecture without that? So we worked and documented those buildings, and the documents were presented at an exhibition in Dhaka at the National Museum, and a book came out. But I mentioned the book because we brought the drawings here to Philadelphia to have a very high rendered photographic image. Dhaka did not have it at that time, but now they have. And this is when I mentioned Sadiq Bhai came in and supported the effort to do the photographic documentation. So there is that Philadelphia connection again with that book. Next. Okay, the next one again Philadelphia. This is the exhibition that Shilpa mentioned. With my colleague James Belluardo, and supported by the Architectural League of New York, which is a very premier institution in the city of New York. We organized an exhibition on 4 very prominent architects of South Asia. Modernist architects were the stalwarts, the pioneers. Charles Correa, Krishna Doshi of India, Achyut Amrinda III from India, and Mazharul Islam from Bangladesh. And we did an exhibition which traveled to 5 cities in the United States in 1997, and I consider that a very landmark work to have the architects of South Asia and Mazharul Islam especially to be conveyed to the architecture community in the United States, again at premier institutions in the East Coast and Chicago. So the photographs, the 2 images that you see are from the installation of the exhibition at the Arthur Ross Gallery at the University of Pennsylvania. And William Whitaker, who would be joining us in a bit, he was, we were doing it together, installing the exhibition. So these are some of the things, these are part of the wondering also, why would you do an exhibition, I was doing a PhD at that time, and I know that I took time off, almost 2 years to, it's just not an exhibition, to do research on the 4 architects, to get the documents together, and then to prepare the exhibitions. It was like straying off. And then I had to come back and do my PhD. I know some of you may know that I have worked on Louis Kahn work, meaning that I've studied his work, published on him, been involved with documentaries, it happened like that. When I came to Philadelphia, some of you may not know, but may know that the collection of Louis Kahn's drawings are at the University of Pennsylvania, which is now known as the Architectural Archives, but it started out as being the Kahn Archive. And the Architectural Archive is the biggest architectural drawings collection in the US, the premier institution, and William Baker directs that. So we'll talk about that a bit more, but when I came to Penn, I had published that book before, the one on the left, meaning that I wrote for the book, which is a very important series that comes out of Japan, GA. And then occasionally I get invited to write, and writing that book, writing for that book, I realized that, I think I've done my work on Louis Kahn, I'm not going to do anything about it anymore. And I've come from Dhaka, I grew up in the shadows of Louis Kahn's greatest work. And coming to Philadelphia at Penn, and being Penn, the home of Louis Kahn, I said, I have to stay away from this. It's too much, I've got to do 2 things. But I couldn't, Louis Kahn, after all, he draws you in. And so I joined the archives, and Shilpa also worked at the archives. And there were thousands of drawings that had come in from Kahn's office. They were being documented, cataloged, organized. And then I was a research assistant or something like that. That was my job, and I joined the archives. And I handled all the drawings for the Dhaka project. It He knows exactly. 8,254. 24 drawings of Dhaka of all kinds, sketches, half drawn.
This man counted them all and touched them all.
Yes. I touched all the drawings. I lifted them back at the back with a pencil mark, with the catalog number. If you ever come to the Khan Archives, anybody is free to come and look at the drawings. Those are my pencil marks. So, my God, I never expected this, But I learned so much to handle the drawings, Khan's drawings and sketches and office documents directly. Nothing like it. So Khan continued to be a topic, and in 2002, my friend Saiful Haq, who is a partner in crime, so to speak, from Dhaka, and he has been here together, and we've done a few things. And we did an exhibition again at the National Museum in Dhaka. This is a couple of images, and I can see my wife Hasina and my mother looking over the drawings. And mother also is always a skeptic. What are you always up to? So she's looking very carefully, something meaningful. And we also did a book at that time. So the Khan saga continues, and then I've done essays and all that. I think right now I'm kind of goodly away from Louis Khan for now. Until I get drawn in as a topic or an issue, not like just describing Khan's work. And then the diverse things I've done, I just haven't been working on Bangladesh, but that, of course, is a recurring topic to look at the architecture of Bangladesh, give it as I perhaps claim, in a lame way, give it a theoretical framework in which I've written articles, essays, and books. But then in 2007, the book on the left, it's a special issue of the British journal, Architectural Design. They invited me to guest edit an issue on contemporary architecture in India. That was a big, interesting task. Although I did the 1997 exhibition on the modernists, but contemporary architecture in India, first of all, it was a huge task. India is vast, huge, and between 1997 and 2007, so many things that happened, so many new architects. But I had a great opportunity, going around India, meeting people, and collecting materials, and then curating, who gets to be highlighted, and a lot of interesting essays that came out in the book. The book in the middle, I'm also very glad to have done that, I should say, or that book is the culprit. Designing Dhaka and Manifesto for a New City. So for those of you who are not from Dhaka or have not been to Dhaka, how should I describe Dhaka? It's a furiously maddening, mad city they can never get out of. I'm here, but Dhaka is in my mind, so I'm kind of, Dhaka has been, again, another topic in my mind, but not in a planning sense. Dhaka, very interestingly, the word Dhaka in Bangla would translate in English as concealed, as hidden, which is a very curious name for a city. So, in a sense, like Italo Calvino is a city that you can never find. It's always hidden. It's always pursuing, and you need to kind of dry it out. So, my work with Dhaka is about drying it out. And also, as an architect, I've been writing newspaper articles. That's another thing, another kind of writing that I do, especially for the Daily Star. They asked me to start writing, I think in the mid-1990s, and I wrote a couple of articles like everyone does, all the problems of Dhaka, the pollution, the traffic, or Dhaka's traffic is like unbeatable, right? So I wrote a few things like that, and I decided, why should I do this? I'm an architect. Any journalist should be doing that. You open any newspaper in Bangladesh, it's all about, describing, the hellish things that goes on in a city. But then I decided I'll write about what is possible. because that's what an architect can do. I can write and also I can draw images. I can do it, my associates, my friends can do it. So I've been writing in Daily Star with that sort of suggestive idea of a possible Dhaka, utopic or whatever you want to call it, and many of my colleagues, they're oftentimes engineers, I would present and I would write and they would say, oh, this is what we're doing. And I said, yes, that's what you need. You don't need infrastructural planning that doesn't work, traffic planning that does not work, and you've been doing that all in a very pragmatic, rational way. Nothing is working. First of all, you need to dream. And then you need to kind of think about what kind of city you want instead of jumping into it and trying to cater to little things here and there. So the essay is mostly about what is or was possible. And then they got collected together as a book, Designing Dhaka. And when the book came out, I think, it got very popular among architecture students, and they used it as, studio projects and all that. But most importantly, the chairman of Bengal Foundation, he got a hold of the copy, and I'd not known him before, and he invited me to talk to him, and he gave me an offer I could not refuse. What are you doing there? I mean, this is like, I was still teaching at the University of Hawaii. Come to Dhaka, set up an institute, I'll support you. And I guess, I was tinkering with that idea for a long time, and Sina and I came to the US in 1987, Boston, New York, Philadelphia. But, we have never been disconnected. People ask me, so how does it feel being away from Dhaka? I always think that I was hardly away, mentally I'm involved. In the moment I go back to Dhaka, the next day, I'm involved. Every summer I went back. My friends used to get wary of me. When is Khaled coming to Dhaka? Because I'll do seminars, I'll do workshops, I'll do charades, and every summer there was something, and they say, oh my gosh, when is Khaled coming? Because, would run the block and do things like that. There was an idea that I would like to do something in a more organized and fundamental way, and so the idea of an institute came up. And that's when in 2015, prior to that, conceived this idea of a new institute, a research and design organization, the Bengal Institute for Architecture, Landscapes and Settlements. It's a long name. Because, as I said, I wanted to not just say architecture, because immediately that would then get pigeonholed. I was getting more interested in landscape issues, the larger issues, whether they be regional landscape or urban landscape, so I needed to get all these names in. But known by the Bengal Institute now. And so that book became the foundation for this, again, this wandering back to Dhaka. The book on the right is a collection of essays, all those things that I've been writing in diverse places. Oftentimes, you don't have access to those journals and all them. I thought it'd be nice to get. In fact, a friend of mine who teaches at the Catholic University in Washington, Adnan Morshed, suggested this idea of putting it together as a book, and that came out in 2024. And I'm happy to say the book received an award in 2026 from the International Committee of Architectural Critics. Next, please. And of course, and then another recurring topic, and I need to really finish this job and not do anything about this topic anymore, is the architecture of Mazharul Islam. The name I mentioned before, one of the stalwarts of modern architecture in Bangladesh. Abdullah Bangladesh among the mentors that I mentioned, of course, Mazharul Islam in Dhaka was a mentor. I worked for him, and then we established another research institution, Chetona, in 1983, and which led to that exhibition on architecture in Bangladesh. So, you know, all those things, and then one thing leads to another. Also, the one book on the top left is a conversation that I did with Mazharul Islam in 1993, and that got put together as a book. And again, Philadelphia is part of the story. A friend of ours, Humayra, she helped translate, and you know, the Bangla version and English version. So we put it together as a book. One on the left you can't see very much is a big folio that got published in 2023, like with plates, drawings, photographs by this amazing Turkish photographer. So that is out. The one with the big image, Mazharul Islam, an architect of tomorrow, it's going to be a definitive book on Mazharul Islam. Many projects that people do not know, we researched and put it together. And then wonderful essays by a lot of well-known people, Kenneth Frampton, William Burgess. So that was a big effort, almost 3 years in making, and this is going to be published in December this year. Right, and of course I have to mention this, again, see, something that I wanted to hide and run away from, but
We know Ummad. 90s, we know Ummad. Everyone knows the Ummad. Yeah.
Right. So back in 1978, a friend of mine, I have to mention names because another thing, many of these efforts, I've not done it myself. There are collaborators and colleagues. Ishtiaq Hussain and I put together this satirical magazine, Ummad. Interestingly, it's a kind of inspired by Mad Magazine. If anybody of you know which was Mad Magazine, right? So, but it's a totally Bengali, Bangladeshi topic based, and of course I did caricatures. I love to do caricatures. Again, another kind of drawing engagement. And the two images on the right, again, these are when I was in Philadelphia. I used to contribute editorial drawings for the Philadelphia Inquirer. I did that for many years. It brought some pocket money. That was that, but also I did that. And Philadelphia Magazine, I think it's defunct now. I did for Philadelphia Magazine, and the image on the right, the middle one is from the Philadelphia Inquirer, I remember, from the 1992 election. And the image on the right was published in the Nation magazine from New York, which is a leftist, very well known, very well circulated magazine. So I contributed to the Nation. So, I did that. Well, lastly, the book that I'm actually very proud of, which is also kind of a combination. There are multiple combinations, as I said, small completions. And this is a book that was published in 2023, The Great Padma, the epic river that made the Bengal Delta. And the Padma is the name of a major river, for those of you who may not be aware. But the Padma is the river where the Ganges flows through Bangladesh. It comes to be known as Padma. Now, the story of Padma is very rarely told. There are many books on the Ganges. Every year there's a book on the Ganges. But if you pick the book up, I can show you kind of the story of the Ganges stops somewhere in Bihar or part of Western Bengal. The life of the Ganges as it becomes the Padma, which is a kind of a different life. That's when the Padma becomes the Delta. It inaugurates the Delta, it ushers the Delta, but the Delta, I mean the image on the right, is just this massive waterscape, which is what makes Bangladesh, this sort of fluid landscape of water and land, and this alternation, and this sort of borrowing and taking between land and water, which happens just where in the new political state of where Bangladesh is. It coincides with this turn in the life of the Ganges. So when we established Bengal Institute, there's one thing that became very clear to me. It had become very clear in a little vague way, but it became very clear to me that the first thing we need to do is kind of a very good hydrological understanding of Bangladesh, even if you're an architect working in the city. If you look at the image on the right with those trees and the paddy fields, those are very shifting images. One season it's like that, and another season the whole thing can be underwater, and that's the cycle. So if you don't understand that, how can you be an architect in Bangladesh? So that was kind of one of the basic premise of founding the institute, and not too many people are talking like that. Now people are. Perhaps we are responsible. And when we started the Bengal Institute, we hired associates, and our first hires were geographers. The first two wonderful geographers. Architects came later. So the book on the Podda, I think there's one more image. And we just, this is not showing the quality of the photograph. The real book is there. You can have a chance to take a look at it. So the book has essays, maps, drawings, photographs. It's everything about the Podda, everything you wanted to learn about the Podda. But then there are, Podda is a river that by itself is an endless story. So there could be other books on the Podda, but I am very proud to do this book. Wonderful essays. The preface was written by Amitabh Ghosh. I'm very happy about that. But these photographs, they're rare. We went out and collected these photographs, with aerial shots. And the thing that you can see here, with the river itself, which I call an oceanic river. Sometimes, if you ever come to Bangladesh and go near the banks of the river Padma, you cannot see the other side. What kind of a river is that? Right? They're like 7, 8, 10 kilometers wide at some points, and it's fluctuating. And that's the nature of things. The banks are fluctuating. Nodi Ekulnai, Okulnai. That really describes the river Padma. So anyway, that, as I said, led to the Bengal, the designing Dhaka book led to the Bengal Institute, and this is the kind of work that we do at the Bengal Institute, the production of the book. And it's a multidisciplinary work. Not one single person could have done this, although, I can be blamed for putting it together. As a kind of a choreographer, my name comes at the top, but there are many colleagues who, perhaps you can say that I was able to bring people together and they couldn't say no at the same time, and so therefore the book. So the Bengal Institute, 2015, I get this invitation, and of course, I said to my wife, I am going off wandering. And as Shilpa mentioned very nicely, she said, go. Not really, she's saying not really. No, she said no, I thought it was no, but without the support that I have from her and my children, Omid and Una, I have to mention the name Una because, she left for Europe today and she couldn't be here. She said, our naam wo bata. So, right. She said, mention my name. So I just have to mention Mona. Yeah, so there was, I would say without the support, support is a very poor word. But that questionable support, and I think that's also a good thing. And I mean just saying, go, yes. That would not have been good, but with that little skepticism that makes me sure that I really actually do something meaningful, right? So this is 4 images from our website. if you can read a little, I don't know if you can read any of the text from the back, at the back. So the institute, but I taught in the U.S. in many universities, and and I forgot to note my dear friend from the University of Hawaii, Steve Miller. Steve, are you here, please? Steve, he was a professor at the university, dear colleague, and we did some wonderful things and some naughty things together. He's really expert on climate and sustainability. He now lives in Philadelphia. But you know that within universities, and many of you are also part of the university and taught, it's kind of very strictly organized, and they talk about in the university about interdisciplinary things, but it never happens. Everybody's holding on to their own turf. And within architecture also, you have always someone higher than you, always dictating, instructing what you do, what you cannot do. I mean, I did my own things wherever I was, but I think there was a restriction. Now I thought that, how long can I do this? And when I go back to Dhaka, I'll just do everything that I wanted to do, ever. So the institute is like that. We have a research and design program, and I'll explain that a little bit. We have an academic program, and we have a publications and public program. The academic program, next slide. If any of you want to go and look at the website, Bengal Institute, if you type, type Bengal Institute, you'll get to the website. And I think there are some wonderful things over the last 10 it's 11th year. We have done, I think, quite incredible things. Sometimes I go and look at it and I discover, did I do this? Or did we do this? So yeah, there's too many things we have done. And I think those are all achievements of the team that we have. This is so these are some of the it's an academic program, but we don't have a degree granting. We don't give out degrees. It's a workshop based. Just come and join in the intellectual journey, and people came in, and it's open to anyone. It's not for architects only. We have architects, planners, geographers, writers, editors, journalists. It's open to the public, and people come and join the workshop. It's a very sort of open and very free form of intellectual explorations. But the main thing is that the people who are conducting the workshops, so on the top image, you can see two of my dear colleagues from Philadelphia, Dilip Tukunha and Anuradha Mathur. Anuradha passed away a few years ago, sadly. They both taught at Penn. I just wrote them in, Chalo Dhaka. So they went and they ran the first few workshops. They're wonderful teachers in landscape architecture. And then the one at the bottom is that we also have done some very wonderful joint academic programs with international institutions. The one the lower left is with the TU Delft in the Netherlands, a very wonderful institute. So that's, their students came to Dhaka, and we don't call our students, we call them participants because they're all graduate level people. Honor them, we call them participants. So we took them to the Netherlands, so there was this interactive thing. But our learning experience is not only within the classroom environment. We take them out to outside Dhaka to wherever we can go. Next, please. ছবি কি পিছনে দেখা যাচ্ছে দেখতে পাচ্ছি And then, of course, as I said, we brought in some wonderful people. And the first 5 years was like robust. And Bengal Institute came to be known not only in Bangladesh, but regionally in India, in Sri Lanka. And I have to say, when I hear that, that your institute is a model, come to Sri Lanka and do something here. That was a while ago, but now I think things have happened. So that makes me very happy. The one on the top left left is we did a workshop in Jashore. So we lived in a rural area and we brought in two very important architects from Australia, Lapastrier and Stachbury. The one on the right is a landscape workshop, and then there's a hands-on, so we did a hands-on workshop with, brick. And one on the top right, bottom is again a landscape workshop with a very well-known botanist who passed away, Dijen Sharma. He's like a very master botanist. He named and know all plants and all that. It's another thing that I realized that we don't even know our own resources and heritage, buildings, plants, landscapes, so I think we needed to do that. Thanks. And then our public programs, we organized, I think incredible events, and again brought in people, so they would come to the event, but they also conduct the workshop. One of the top left is Krishna Doshi, India's most eminent architect. I mentioned his name before. Shaptak's teacher in Ahmedabad, India. And on the right is famous Mexican architect Alberto Balash. And then Nilkan Chaya, another very well-known teacher from India. And then bottom left is Gary Hack, who was the Dean of Architecture at the University of Pennsylvania. So yes, Gary does go to Dhaka, and he came. So it was just a robust intellectual environment. Next, please. Some more examples, Anuradha and Philip. And one on the right is a major Australian architect, Gregory Burgess, and a major Sri Lankan architect. We bring them in. No other organizations, not even the universities, have done such public programs before. It takes a lot of effort to bring them in and do this intellectual conversations. And then during COVID, since we couldn't do public programs anymore, we did online conversations, and I did quite a few, and the one on the bottom left shows Manfredi and Weiss. They are a very well-known architectural practice in New York, but also connected to Philadelphia. They teach at Penn. So, and one on the bottom right is again, so not only events in Dhaka, there are a few events we try to do here. That shows in New York. Again, a conversation with the eminent architectural critic, Kenneth Frampton. And just to give you a sense of the public programs that we did, the one I mentioned, Doshi, we also got the Finnish architectural critic Juhani Palasma, and the image on the right is the event with Palasma and Doshi. And I have to claim, and I will claim until the record is broken, that we had like about more than 1,200 people attending from all universities in Bangladesh, from outside Dhaka. We didn't really expect that, Yes, we ran out of refreshments, out of samosas, but that itself was quite something. That was an amazing, successful. And we all kept on doing small events, the one on the left, always couple of hundred people, and within our institute itself. But the one on the top left, you can see maybe a little bit. Our programs were attended by well-known figures. For example, Sir Fazli Hassan Abed from BRAC organization. He came and spoke at many of our events and supported us. So we got the support of quite an incredible people in Bangladesh and elsewhere. I think we're coming to an end. So this is a kind of an array of workshops happening in the last couple of years, 25, 26, and I won't go into the details, but writing workshop, crafting workshop, space making is done workshop with a very well-known artist, installation artist in Bangladesh, Thali Al Mahmoud, if anybody knows Pakistani. The one on the top right is a workshop with another well-known designer, Chandrasekhar Shah. And then, yes, the exact. And just if you can see the image on the bottom left, we're not only interested in Dhaka, the big city, the mad city, but also the small towns. You know, the one thing I said that the solution to Dhaka lies outside Dhaka, which means the other towns, the other cities. So we've done a number of workshops with the smaller towns. You go there and do our work. Next. We did other things, you know, and I don't think I can do that anymore, but we did exhibitions, you know, like whenever so our research and design team, they would take up topics on their own, or I would cook it up and they would work on it without any support. And again, like envisioning certain things about Dhaka or a small town, and then we do get invited by that town itself or come and do something. And so the image on the bottom two image are from the town Sylhet, and Saleh Bhai is a Sylheti, as we all know. That's his hometown, so we went there. And the first thing I said, my wife is also Sylheti. So, and I had to do like public talks there in Sylhet. We did an exhibition on our ideas on Sylhet, you know, which itself was quite incredible. And first one daunting. So the image on that bottom right is from that exhibition in Sylhet. So we did this work on Sylhet, what is possible in the town. And Salih Bhai, we did Shomanichi. So, you know, we thought we'd do this exhibition in Sylhet, and I don't know what the people in the town will think. You know, why are you coming from Dhaka and talking about our future? That was a bit apprehensive. But then these young students, as you can see in the middle, they just took over. And, you know, they just took over and, you know, they were working with us a little bit, and they were explaining to the visitors, you know, this is what's going to happen, that is what's going to happen. I said, that's just wonderful. And I had to speak on a number of occasions, and the first opening line was, I'm beginning to see little Germany. So, you know, just kind of make sure that, you know, they don't throw things at me. But those are exhibitions on, we had Agami Dhaka was the title of, you know, our visionary ideas for Dhaka city, and the first two are from there. Again, multimedia, physical models, a lot of effort, you know, land representational drawings. So we did a lot. Next. More exhibitions, we've done quite a few. So what we do at Bengal Institute is that, if you can call it production of knowledge in a sense, but we don't keep it to ourselves, we take it to the public. So I can write in the newspaper and talk about it, but then we do exhibitions and make people come and see, and then we can do publications. So we make sure whatever we do, small things, big things, get it out there, let the public see it, you know. So our future idea of Dhaka or whatever city we're working on really depends on percolating those ideas among people, and they will claim it or reject it or take it over in their own way. That's the idea. Because it is easier to do that than work with so-called policymakers. That doesn't really work. And we work with children, you know, we brought children to our exhibitions, you know, let them see, let them talk about what's going on. The one on the bottom right, we also have done installations in international exhibitions. This is an image from the Seoul Biennale from 2019. What you see is a visitor looking at the exhibit, so we, it was a kind of an anthropological project, so we selected and curated objects that you can find on the streets of Dhaka, like what vendors sell, or like someone cutting your hair on the street. And we collected all those items, and so we recreated the streets of Dhaka, like street sign, as you can see, street, drawing, I think that was an incredible thing that we did, so we shipped it off, so it's kind of an installed version of the streets of Dhaka. Right, and maybe I'll quickly end here, otherwise it will continue, which I hadn't planned, but as I said, when the topic comes. So I'll show a few, actually, the work that we have done, kind of the research and the sort of the design propositional work. So this is what has been on my mind before 2015, before I went back to Dhaka, is again to rethink Bangladesh landscape, the whole, as I mentioned, the sort of the landscape of water and land. And as you can see, this is a classic image. What is wet now may not be wet tomorrow, or may get wetter another day. Next, please. And then there's this image, when the city comes in, and the city in Bangladesh ironically has forgotten the water, or tend to forget the water, or tend to push the water away. But that cannot happen. Planning tends to put water, embank the water, hold out the water. So we have to kind of rethink our position with water. And that's one argument that we make in many of our work. This is a classic photograph of the city with water. It's basically the Dhaka city. Next, please. These are some mapping tasks that our people do at the institute. Dhaka is a little concentration. Dhaka city is a little concentration on the map there. But really, to kind of think about the future of Dhaka, you need to rethink, map what is called a watershed. The river, all rivers have a watershed, and water moves in a certain way. It doesn't go half there, but that really needs to be understood. And when you plan anything, city, buildings, infrastructure, in a place like Bengal with the delta, you really need to understand the flow of water. You can't really impede the flow of such kind of water, and it will only be disastrous elsewhere. So that's kind of a mapping that we do. Next, please. Just to show you what is going on with Dhaka. So again, Bangladesh all over is a beautiful tapestry of land and water. I would say beautiful. And on the left, if you can see that a little bit, you sort of fingerlings cutting across. Some parts are depressed and some are not. And the depressed part is which, where we say flooded, right? When the water comes in. So I don't use the word flood anymore. I say flow and overflow. It floods only when you make a benchmark, you build something and it gets water comes in and it's flooded. Then you built it there, you know the water might come in. So I think to really understand the movement of water as flow and overflow. But what is happening in the last 30, 40 years is the image on the right. So planning and building and development in Bangladesh, especially Dhaka, is, find wetlands, fill them up. That's the second image, as you can see, the white part, which is sand fill. Flatten it, make plots, and then you have buildings popping up like that, That's the way of, pushing water away. That cannot happen because that gets flooded also. But if such a beautiful landscape, why can't we keep the ecological footprint? That landscape is an ecological footprint of green and blue. Why can't we imagine a city that works with that footprint instead of totally demolishing it, blank slate, and create a city? And a city that, again, in most cases doesn't work. So one of the things that we're doing is we can imagine a third form. There's the ecological form, and there's the developmental form, which is happening, which we reject, and the third form. So ours is like a pursuit of this third form. Next, please. Yeah, this is the sort of the contradiction. Dhaka as it is, and just maybe 20 minutes outside of Dhaka, if you can handle the traffic, if you find this. This is not AI generated, this is what you get just outside Dhaka, but this is totally smothered over to create something like this. Why can't we make a city with a condition like that? We're not there yet, that's the utopia, if you like, that we need to have. Next please. Interestingly, I'm showing some of these images and prior to going back. I worked with students here at Temple University, at Penn, when I've taught, I've done architecture studios, and at the University of Hawaii. And of course, then we work with my students to work on Dhaka. So these are some images from some of the students' work. Imagine a new kind of housing, the third form that I'm talking about, with the landscape of Dhaka. Next, please. Some exercises in making an inventory of the landscapes of Bangladesh. Bangladesh is a very small country, but it has some incredible diversity in the landscape. I think the diversity comes because of the dynamic of water. Water comes in and reshapes the landscape, and you have something else. And of course, there are human interventions also, which changes the landscape. Next. Our geographers do wonderful things, small team, but very robust team. New atlas of Dhaka from earthquake spots, water clogging, urban heat. Image on the left is the mapping the shifting of the Padma River. The next couple of images are earthquake mapping, and so on. Coastal mapping, again, where the islands are constantly shifting. These are static images, but that's the challenge. How do you map a dynamic geographic event? I call Bangladesh a geography in motion. And so mapping, the nature of mapping is a complex task. So we do dynamic mapping, animated mapping. And the image on the very right, then I do urge my colleagues, whatever you do, get an article out. So the geographers, that's an article from the Daily Star, but that's on the Meghna estuary. And so, I pushed all my colleagues to write, whatever you do, just don't be shy and just hold on to your work. So I'm very happy about that. Then these are some of the imaginary, if you like, images of Dhaka. If anybody is familiar with Asamanzi, that part, designed the conceptual design for the river bank. We did that for the World Bank in 2016. That was the first task we got commissioned. Next, please. If anybody knows about this institution, Prague University has a rural campus in Savar, and we were invited to the landscape planning for that. So these are some images of that. Next, please. Silet, these are some selected images when we work on Silet. We kind of mainly focus on the riverbank. Another one of my very fond sort of project idea is kind of redo the riverbanks, because when rivers are beautiful in Bangladesh in rural areas, but once it runs to the city, if I help breaks loose, it just like ransacked. And somehow we just don't know how to deal with river damage in that kind of images. So if we could do a restoration of the riverbanks, that would be a grand example. So from Silet, next. I'm not going into details of it, it's just a very thumbnail summary picture. We worked in Rajshahi, which is a city next to the Padma River. There's a huge park, the Kamuzaman Park, and we were asked to propose ideas for that. Next, please. And these are a bit, these are really exploratory, or if you like, visionary. Rethinking large-scale housing in the floodplains. Whether along the floodplain or on island formed in the floodplains. examples. I was toying with this idea of agricultural housing because land is so precious, especially with agricultural production. Many of the agricultural lands are being converted for building projects, so that's a loss in terms of food security. So we thought, but there are roads running through the agricultural lands. Why not create housing on the road and let the agricultural land be? So these are explorations. Next. And we also got invited to do some professional projects at the building scale. That's what sustains us. Some ideas for a big villa, if you like, in a rural landscape next to against the house near the Pada. And also occasionally things like this, a community center for the Dalit community in Khulna. These have been proposed at multiple stage next things. And lastly, a project that got built is a meeting complex next to the Pada River, again in a rural landscape. So the idea to kind of work with the language and the physical condition of the area. Next. This has been completed. Next. Right. This is the last slide. So I'll just end by saying. I don't know anything to end it with. Kind of, as I mentioned with the Institute, yes, that's where I am right now, and I think there's one way. Sorry, this is what I wanted to say. Again, I have to say I'm here embodying my institute. The institute is made up of a team of people. I also have wonderful colleagues, and this is what we have built up. This is when we were at a big number of people become smaller, but this idea of the production of knowledge, this idea of sharing of knowledge, this intellectual interaction that we have created, the hub, advanced training, if you like, exposure to widespread new innovative ideas. This is what we like to do, and we like to think that people will take up things on their own, and we have a bit of an alumni out of Bengal Institute, and we are, I'm happy to say, all over the world by this time. Some of them are in Philadelphia or have been in Philadelphia. So that's where I am. So it's up to you then to judge what I've done. Thank you.
Thank you, Khaled. It's a wonderful overview of a visionary who came here in the United States and ran all the knowledge and visions and experience and went back and building an institution. Himself is an institution. So thank you for sharing so much potential things. Hello. Thank you so much. I'm sure you're great. অনেকে এসেছেন দূর থেকে এবং খালেদের vision, how we can include the water in the cities. I think this is a major thing. So, আমি এখন I will invite two short speech by two person. After Khaled's student, Ravi Parikya, and also Nina Ahmed. Nina, come here. Nina is the Philadelphia Council of Women at Large. She is a political leader. She was an university PhD from Penn. She decided to go to politics. poorest people in Philadelphia, even poorer than Bangladesh. She was doing research at Hillside, so she gave up. She had some element I loved, like making business smaller, and her school more educated. So Nina is our star. So Nina will show a short lecture.
Yes. Very dangerous to give a politician a mic. Thank you so much, Sadiq Bhai. Good afternoon, assalamu alaikum everyone. For those who don't know me, my name is Nina Ahmed. It is an honor to be here to hear from my friend Khaled and all the work he's done. It has been significant that he mentioned something about possibility. That is what drives humanity, is if there is a possibility. And it was wonderful to see his vision and what he's done. He also mentioned something about not being able to work with policymakers. So I beg to defer. As a legislator who is in the legislative branch in our local government, we make the laws, and our executive branch implements the laws. But what Khaled said was very significant in how we can work with nature instead of against nature, how we can coexist. And that coexistence is true whether we're talking about nature and us, or we're talking about people, different kinds of people in our communities coexisting and working together. And this space, and I want to give Jolly a good shout out and applause for Jolly's space. Jolly has made a community center that we're all using, and I'm very, very pleased to be here. And I want to tell Hasina, or Nilu, as many know her, Khaled's, I would say better half, right? Better half, okay. Thank you for inviting us, thank you for making this happen, and most importantly, thank you to Sadiq Bhai and local public the doctors, Fatima Ahmed and Ziauddin Ahmed, who have really spearheaded this about recognizing how much value we have in all our community members, whether it's in this country or our home country. So thank you all for being here. Thank you all for building community. If I can be of any assistance to any of you in Philadelphia, if you're from Philadelphia, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. I just got a constituent phone number and email that we'll be following up from today. But even if it's not something within Philadelphia, if I can be of assistance, I just want to end by saying I recently passed a law for some immigration reform. And I think it's sort of something that you might appreciate. We are trying to streamline the process of getting T&U visas, which are temporary visas for those who have been either trafficked or victims of violence. And our local agency, police, district attorney, and human services actually have to write a letter stating that this person is eligible for that type of temporary visa. I know some of us who are asylees would fall under that. So we are working on many fronts in spite of what this administration is doing to safeguard our communities, to build our communities, and to prosper here. And I chair Public Health and Human Services, so I'm very invested in making sure that public health is a lens for doing a lot of intersectional work in our community. So thank you all for listening, thank you all for being here, and thank you all for honoring my friend Khaled.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nina. আপনি পিছনে আছেন একটু বসে আসে। So আমি short speech by David, who is Khaled's student. He will just say something. বাংলায় বলতে কোনো অসুবিধা নেই। বাংলায় বলতে।
আসসালামু আলাইকুম, আমি লাবিব হোসেন। তো আমি আজকে স্যারের ছাত্র হিসেবে দুটো কথা বলবো। প্রথমে সাদিক ভাইকে ধন্যবাদ জানাই প্রোগ্রামটা আয়োজন করার জন্য। আমি স্যারকে যতদূর চিনি, স্যার একজন প্রচার বিমুখ মানুষ, তো এই জন্য আমি প্রথম যখন জানতে পারলাম এরকম একটা প্রোগ্রাম হচ্ছে, আমার কাছে মনে হলো এটা খুব দরকার ছিল। আর তো স্যারের ছাত্র হিসেবে আমি আসলে স্যারের ডিরেক্ট ছাত্র ছিলাম না, বাট স্যারের সাথে আমার অনেকগুলো কানেকশন। তো আমি জাস্ট দুইটা পয়েন্টে কথা বলি। আমার মনে পড়ে আমি যখন বুয়েটে আর্কিটেকচারের স্থাপত্যের স্টুডেন্ট ছিলাম, আমি 4th ইয়ারে মনে হয় তখন পড়ি, তখন আমি জানতে পারলাম যে খালেদ আশরাফ স্যারের একটা লেকচার প্রোগ্রাম আগে ছায়ানট ভবনে, যে ধানমন্ডিতে ছায়ানট ভবনে উনি ঢাকার ইকোলজি বিষয় নিয়ে কথা বলবেন। তো আমরা গেলাম এবং আমি এখনো মানে আমার খুব আই হ্যাভ দিস ভিভিড মেমোরি যে আমি ওই লেকচার দ্বারা এতই অনুপ্রাণিত হলাম যে আমি ওই লেকচারের শুনতে ঠিক করলাম আমি আমার 5th ইয়ার প্রজেক্টে কি কাজ করব। আমাদের আর্কিটেকচার 5 বছরের প্রোগ্রাম, তো 5th ইয়ারে আমাদের একটা লম্বা প্রজেক্ট করতে হয়। তো ওইটার টপিকটা আমি তখনই স্যারের লেকচার দেখে অনুপ্রাণিত হয়ে ঠিক করলাম যে আমি আসলে ঢাকার ওয়েটল্যান্ড নিয়ে, ঢাকার পানি নিয়ে কাজ করব। এবং আমার জার্নিটা আসলে ওখান থেকে শুরু, এবং এরপর আমি সেই বিষয়ে রিসার্চ কন্টিনিউ করে যাচ্ছি। তো এর মানে হচ্ছে আমি যতটুকু করতে পারছি বা ফিউচারে আমি যতটুকু করতে পারবো এর পিছনে আসলে স্যারের অনেক অবদান, এটা আসলে বলার অপেক্ষা রাখে না। তো এটা হচ্ছে একটা দিক, এবং সেই জার্নিটা এখনো চলতেছে। আর দ্বিতীয় যে দিকটা আমি বলবো যে ওই 5th ইয়ার প্রজেক্টের সময় স্যারের সাথে আমার একটা কানেকশন তৈরি হলো। তখন আমি বাংলাদেশে, আর স্যার হচ্ছে এখানে পড়ান। তো আমি স্যারকে ইমেল করলাম যে স্যার এটা আমার 5th ইয়ার প্রজেক্ট। তো স্যারের কাছে আমার অনেক প্রশ্ন নিয়ে আমি গেলাম, স্যার এটা কোথায় পাবো, এটা কিভাবে হবে। এবং স্যার ওয়াজ সো জেনারেস, স্যার এখানে পড়ান ফুল টাইম, বাট স্যার ওয়াজ সো জেনারেস। আমার উত্তরগুলো তিনি দিতেন, আমাকে সেই রিসোর্সগুলোর সাথে কানেক্ট করাই দিলেন, এবং স্যারের সাথে আমার একটা সম্পর্ক তৈরি হলো। তো আমি এরপর একসময় স্যার বললাম, স্যার আমি মাস্টার্স করতে চাই, আমি আমেরিকায় এসে মাস্টার্স করতে চাই, আমি আপনার একটা রেকমেন্ডেশন লেটার লাগবে। তো স্যার আমাকে সেই রেকমেন্ডেশন লেটারটা দিল, এবং আমি আসলে ইউপেনের মাস্টার্স প্রোগ্রামে আসলাম। এবং এটা আমার বলতে কোনো দ্বিধা নাই যে স্যার আসলে ওই রেকমেন্ডেশন লেটারটা না দিলে আমার ইউপেনের এই মাস্টার্স প্রোগ্রামে আসা হইতো না। কারণ স্যার হচ্ছে ইউপেন থেকে পিএইচডি করছেন, স্যারের একটা অনেক সুনাম আছে ইউপেনে, এবং ওই লেটারটা না হলে হয়তো আমার ইউপেনে আসা হতো না, আমার পিএইচডি হতো না। আমি তো অন্য জায়গায় থাকতাম, বাট আমি আজকে যে জায়গায় আছি সেটার পিছনে স্যারের অবদান অপরিসীম। এবং এটা শুধু আমি একা না, আমি জানি আমি আরো অনেককে চিনি। আমার এখানে আমার সমসাময়িক বুয়েটের আরো অনেকে আছে, এর নাম হচ্ছে অনন্যা, আমাদের বুয়েটের কয়েকজন জুনিয়র, সাইফ। আমরা সবাই কোনো না কোনো সময় স্যারের কাজ দ্বারা অনুপ্রাণিত হয়েছি। এবং আমি পার্সোনালি অনেককে চিনি যারা আমার মতে সেম ভাবে স্যারের রেকমেন্ডেশন লেটার নিয়ে ইউপেনে আসছে। শুধু ইউপেন না, অনেক ইউনিভার্সিটি, ইউএস এর অনেক ইউনিভার্সিটিতে পড়তে আসছে। সো ইটস লাইক আমার কাছে মনে হয়, আমিও যেহেতু শিক্ষকতায় আছি, শিক্ষকতার একটা বড় দিক হচ্ছে এই যে অনুপ্রাণিত করা। তো আমি মনে করি স্যার এই দিক দিয়ে অনেক সফল, এবং ইটস লাইক আ ব্রাঞ্চ। স্যার হচ্ছে সেই গাছের হচ্ছে সেই মানে একদম সেন্ট্রাল ব্রাঞ্চটা, মানে সেন্ট্রাল কম্পিউটার, এবং আমরা হচ্ছে সেই ব্রাঞ্চ। আর লাস্ট একটা কথা না বললেই না, এটা আমি বলে শেষ করতে চাই যে এটা তো স্যারের প্রফেশনাল দিকটা গেল, বাট অ্যাজ এ হিউম্যান বিইং আমার মনে পড়ে আমরা যখন আমেরিকা আসলাম, আমি এবং আমার ওয়াইফ একসাথে আসছি, আমরা একটা বাসা ঠিক করলাম যেটা হচ্ছে সেপ্টেম্বর থেকে লিজ শুরু, আর ক্লাস শুরু হচ্ছে অগাস্ট থেকে। তো আমাদের প্রথম 15-20 দিন থাকার কোনো জায়গা ছিল না। তো এগেইন আমি শুধু স্যারকেই চিনি, স্যারকে বললাম, এবং এখানে হাসিনা ম্যাডাম আছেন, হাসিনা ম্যাডাম আমাদেরকে বললো যে হ্যাঁ আমাদের বাসায় একটা রুম আছে, তোমরা সেখানে এই 15 দিন থাকতে পারো। তো ওই সময় আসলে এই কঠিন সমস্যাটা খুব সহজভাবে সমাধান হয়ে গেছিল বলে আমি হয়তো বুঝিনি, বাট এখন বুঝতে পারি যে এটা ইট টেকস আ লট। সো এটা বললাম এই কারণে যে জাস্ট টু লেট ইউ নো what kind of person they are. So thank you so much স্যার এবং ম্যাডামের জন্য অনেক অনেক শুভকামনা রইল। ধন্যবাদ।
Thank you, Ravi. I just allowed him. There are many stories like this, but basically he said Khaled helped him, his vision to get involved with this city project with water, and also helped him to get into the pen to do his masters. And he did PhD, I think, from Cornell. So then when he came, then he had a place to stay. So Hasina and Khaled couldn't meet until they found a house. So that was the nutshell what he said. But this is only one story. Anyway, thank you very much for your patience and coming. So now I think I request William Whitaker. He'll introduce himself. First of all, I know that he's in charge of Penn's archive, right? So he's going to tell us his introductions of 6 current units, right?
Yeah, Okay, it's a great honor and a privilege to be here. I'm the director of the Architectural Archives at the University of Pennsylvania, and Kazi is an ambassador. Kazi is this magician who connects one place in the world to another and tells people they must come to the office that I work in. They must ask for Bill. Bill will tell you interesting things. Bill will show you interesting things. And what does that have to do with? Well, I'll get to that in a minute, and I have a few things to show you. But first thing I just want to say very simply about Kazi. Kazi is someone who gets things done. That's not an easy thing, but it's an energizing thing, and to watch what he's been able to do in his life and his work over the 33 years I've known him is a very special thing, because that comes back, and this is what I want to talk about, to this experience of an archive. And this archive that I'm in charge of actually is very special to people of Bangladesh, and I'll show you that in a moment. This is perhaps even a place of pilgrimage for your country. So I want to talk about beginnings, and I want to talk a little bit, I'm referring to it in Kazi's own beginnings intellectually, at least with Philadelphia in coming here 35 years ago. But I also want to show you, as briefly as I can, some of the beginnings of the Bangladeshi Parliament complex. These are materials that sit within the archives that Kazi referred to in his remarks. These are part of the records that he counted by hand, although what I'm going to show you, he hasn't even seen. So this is also something of a surprise for him, and I hope for you. But it is this idea of opening up ideas and opening up resources and making them accessible that I think is important, but also making them relevant, engaging them in the world in meaningful ways. And I think in so many instances of what Kazi spoke about, what Shaptak spoke about, what the other speakers have spoken about, Kazi is uniquely gifted in this regard. So I'm going to do this really fast. I think there's not a person in this room that doesn't know something about the building that's on the slide before you. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, good. This is the telegram that was sent from the clients to Khan saying, do you want to do this job? Do you want to take on this challenge of designing the Parliament complex in Dhaka? And you can see it's dated December 11th, 1962. Here's Khan's answer saying, yep, I want to do it. This is a job of a lifetime is what he said, but it's in politer language than that, but it was, yeah. These are other kinds of records that you might find. This is the history of your country, and it is a history of important moments shaping its future. And here it is in a calendar in January 1963, where that's Dhaka. That's Dhaka. And he's there. This is his very first trip. He goes to Rome on his way to Dhaka. That's a capital, an ancient capital. He walks through the Forum. He's exploring. He's thinking about the ways that people in the past have organized themselves politically, the relationships of public spaces to the places where government occurs. That little highlighted spot is where the Senate, the Roman Senate, was located relative to the Forum, but it's in the middle of the action. And of course, you make choices in architecture, deciding which route to follow. This is the Roman capital of a century or so later, the Campidoglio, where you see the seat of government, but there's also this division that takes you to the church. And Khan's own sketch of that point where you go in one direction or the other. This is a photo from the archives at Penn. You guys can make an appointment. You can come see this photo. You don't have to listen to me to explore it yourself. This is a photograph from an agricultural school to the north of the campus, looking south over the space before really any design work happened. This is the party that they organized in honor of the architect. And the architect, his name is Louis Kahn. He was someone who was not born in Philadelphia. He came here as an immigrant. He came here as someone who saw a future in this country, this his parents did, and he made a great life here and one of the most important architects of the 20th century. They're inviting him to a party in his own honor, and I'll just point out they misspelled his name. It's Lois rather than Lewis. Okay, great. Almost immediately he starts sketching the experience of the city. Out on the boats, moving through the landscape. He is seeing it as a landscape of water first. At least that's how he's drawing it. This is on the back of that invitation card. On the envelopes, on the draft pages of his contract, he's gone there to negotiate a contract, and he's taking the back pages of his professional, and he's sketching. He's sketching buildings in relationship to water. He's seeing the monumental built expression in that landscape against the environment around him. He's trying to bring these worlds together. I think, this is what, when I think about Dhaka, and I have not been there, I know that's a bad thing, I need to get there now. This is what I imagine the dynamics of being about. But I think it's also poignant seeing the simple villages against the embankments of the river, or the edge of the river, the monumental architecture, the mosques. So he's thinking about things before he's even started to draw what he might want to express as an architect. And on that same kind of paper, this is the very first design sketch he made for the Capitol complex. And he's got the buildings backwards, they're in all different directions, but he's made a start here. This is a beginning. You can also see, I think he's trying to calculate what his fee is going to be, what he's going to get paid to do all this work. So he made a first trip and then a second trip. And this is the part that Kazi has not seen before. But I'll take you back to a calendar. So 6 weeks later, after he makes his first trip, he makes a second trip, and he brings two colleagues, an engineer named August Commandant and an architect, one of the guys who works for him, Carlos Wallenrock. Well, Carlos brought a camera and took photographs. Here's the second set of telegrams. And this was a project that they wanted to happen very quickly. So we have boxes and boxes of telegrams. Those were really expensive. We take communications for granted that it's so cheap and easy. It was really expensive to write a telegram and to send a telegram, but it gives you a sense of the urgency. It's different from all the other projects that we have in the archives. Khan designed some 240, 250 buildings. The Parliament complex is, in a sense, his largest and in many ways his most significant. And you can see it's anxious. We need you now. Let's move quick. So, in flying the second time, he flies to Karachi. He explores some of the architecture in Karachi. He goes to Delhi, explores some of the buildings in Delhi, Fatehpur Sikri, Agra.
These are not, this is where he's at.
So we see a decision by a creative person that I want to go here. I want to bend my path of creativity to encounter some of these landscapes and experiences. So this is an Acropolis on the outskirts of Karachi, and there's Khan coming out of the doorway there. Driving around Delhi in a taxi. And then if anyone can tell me where that building is, you get a gold star. This is one that's not identified. I'm talking about, these are the little 35 millimeter color slides. They're about this big, and often you can write there. Well, there's nothing written on these, so I don't know where this is. But hopefully you know where this is. This is approaching the Taj Mahal. I just want to point out, you can see someone's shadow there, and you can see that someone is smoking a pipe. That's not Khan, that's the engineer Commandant. But that's a classic shot we've all seen. But I wore my seersucker suit today because the guy in the seersucker suit, that's no Khan. Okay? So we're just at the beginning of this project that designs this epic Parliament complex. This is one place along the path that leads towards this place that means something. And there, we're still following Khan. We come to the other side where again we're confronting water. And we're confronting the relationship of architecture to water. And we see Khan actually make a sketch of that threshold. And you see in the top part. And maybe the reason Carlos Vallenrock, his colleague, the person who's working for him, stopped and took a photograph is that's where Khan stopped to make a sketch. So you get this sense of people working together, or at least in rhythm with each other. And also just, this is not one of the photographs from Vallenrock, but you have to remember there's a garden there. And it's a profound place of reflection. So it's not just a reflection related to water, it's these other flows that are part of humanity. We go to Fatehpur Sikri, another ancient capital. And I love this. This is the entrance to Fatehpur Sikri. And look closely. There's Khan's elbow. Okay? Now he's like starting to edge in because you get the sense that he's starting to fill his mind with creativity. And he's feeling, visiting capitals, whether they be Rome, or capital complexes in India, or monumental architecture. And just capturing that as a quick sketch. He doesn't have a lot of time. It's urgent. Get to Dhaka. And this notebook where those two sketches were, there's other things that are tucked in there. One of which is this. And if you look closely, that's Athens. That's the Acropolis. These are mountains that have monasteries on the top. This is a drawing that I think he made in 1950, not 1962 or 63. He's brought that from somewhere else and tucked it in to this notebook. Or did he bring it along because he felt he needed that with what the challenge that faced him? And then these are photographs taken on the ground by Carlos in Dhaka. This is walking the site. There's not many of them, but land and water. The guy with the pipe. This is why we know it's exactly this trip. But maybe really poignantly flying out or flying in. I think this is flying out because the slides are numbered in a sequence, so you can kind of put that back together. So is this coming or going? Not sure. But in that same notebook with the sketches of Fatehpur Sikri, of the Taj Mahal, that tucked in piece of Athens, that kind of birthplace of democracy, are the first design sketches. Not the very first, but it's starting to carry it forth, and things are starting to speed up. Buildings against water. And you can see this is done in Dhaka on I think that's March 8th. That should be March 8th, 1963. So Kazi and I spoke about how we would have this conversation, and Kazi and I have always had this conversation, and every researcher who would come into the archive would have the same sort of conversation that I'm giving you a feeling for right now. There's this incredible resource that's here in Philadelphia. You guys live close to Philadelphia. Come see these resources. I think that's something that Kazi helped to open a door. He's someone who inspired me to think really broadly about what this stuff really means to people. Of all the people who've come into the archives, people from Bangladesh are the ones that you almost see come to tears when they look at the models that we have, some of the drawings we have, because it really means something. And so for someone who's a steward of collections like this, someone who wants to see these kinds of collections used, I'm just very grateful for the opportunity to show you guys a little bit of this. But as I said, there's about 8,436 drawings. It would take you a better part of a year to look through things, let alone number them in the way that Kazi did. But this is an important part of your history, and I'm very grateful to have a few moments to tell you something about it. And thanks to Kazi for helping open up my sense of its significance and to broaden the idea of connection with how this material can engage people. So thanks.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. It's beautifully described. I'm definitely wishing not miss it. It's that it. Thanks, Bill. So I do little formalities, a little bit. Khaled, please come to the stage. Hasina, come here. Miss Hasina. So, when I'm organizing it, the three groups helped me, inspired me, and behind me. One of them is Bangladesh Association of Delaware Valley. It was established in 1971 for the Bangladeshi liberation movement. You may know that during that time, Nixon government was against formation of Bangladesh. So that time it was hard work, and Quaker group from Philadelphia and few professors from Penn, one of them is James Kahn, they actually did a lot of work, and Quaker group did a blockade. They were sending arms to Pakistani ship covertly. So they're actually taking canoes to blockade those huge Pakistani merchant ships. Anyway, so Bangladesh developed only 8 members of Bangladeshi community. But it was amazing. So after the liberation war, that organization was the first one, and still they're doing work. So I invite the President Shred with your group, come and you have 2 minutes.
শুভ বিকেল সবাইকে আজকে এত সুন্দর একটি অনুষ্ঠানে উপস্থিত হওয়ার জন্য আমরা বাংলাদেশ অ্যাসোসিয়েশন অফ ডেলাওয়্যারের পক্ষ থেকে জানাচ্ছি আন্তরিক ধন্যবাদ। সেই সাথে ধন্যবাদ জানাচ্ছি আমাদের আজকের এই অনুষ্ঠানের আয়োজক ডক্টর জিয়াউদ্দিন আহমেদ এবং ডক্টর ফাতেমা আহমেদকে, যারা সব সময় আমাদের কমিউনিটির জন্য কাজ করে যাচ্ছেন, যারা কাজ করে যাচ্ছেন বাংলা ভাষা, বাংলা সংস্কৃতি এবং বাংলা ঐতিহ্যের জন্য। এবং ধন্যবাদ জানাচ্ছি আমাদের আজকের এই অনুষ্ঠানের অতিথি কাজী খালেদ আশরাফকে এবং ওনার সহধর্মীকে। তো আমি আজকে বাংলাদেশ অ্যাসোসিয়েশন অফ ডেলাওয়্যারের পক্ষ থেকে আমাদের প্রেসিডেন্ট মিস্টার সোহেব আহমেদকে মঞ্চে আসার জন্য অনুরোধ জানাচ্ছি। সেই সাথে অনুরোধ জানাচ্ছি আমাদের ভাইস প্রেসিডেন্ট মিস্টার ইফতেখার আহমেদকে এবং আমাদের সোশ্যাল সেক্রেটারি মিস্টার নূরে আলম পলাশকে। আমরা এখন বাংলাদেশ অ্যাসোসিয়েশন অফ ডেলাওয়্যারের পক্ষ থেকে আমাদের এই আজকের অনুষ্ঠানের অতিথি কাজী আশরাফকে সম্মাননা প্রদর্শন করব। আমি আমাদের প্রেসিডেন্ট মিস্টার সোহেব আহমেদকে অনুরোধ জানাচ্ছি আমাদের অতিথির গলায় মেডেল পরিয়ে দেওয়ার জন্য। আসুন আমরা আজকের এই মুহূর্তটি
Good memory. And one Subaru is obstructing the exit. He has to go. Somebody, I don't know the number. 7142 Subaru. Please remove the car because somebody has to get out. Okay, thank you so much. So next group is Bangladesh American Community Forum. I have to mention this, BADV, the projector, drinks, and chakpuri. So thank you very much for supporting. So Bangladesh American Community Forum, please all of come together.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for helping. They actually made the helping to the background and also help me arranging the food. So thank you. sorry, you're saying something. Sure.
ধন্যবাদ আজকের এই আয়োজক আমাদের সর্বজন শ্রদ্ধেয় ডক্টর জিয়া আহমেদ, উনি আমার দুলাভাই। ওনাকেই ধন্যবাদ দিচ্ছি সর্বপ্রথম, বিকজ ওনার মতো গুণী ব্যক্তিত্ব আজকের এই আয়োজনের মাধ্যমে আরেকজন গুণীকে সম্মান দেওয়া এটি কম নয়। আমরা সবসময় বাংলাদেশি সবসময় আমরা নিচে টানতে ব্যস্ত, তো সেক্ষেত্রে উনি তার ব্যতিক্রম। ওনাকে আবারও সশ্রদ্ধ সালাম এবং অভিনন্দন। আমি বাংলাদেশি আমেরিকান কমিউনিটি ফোরাম অফ পেনসিলভেনিয়া, এই পেনসিলভেনিয়ার সর্ববৃহৎ অনলাইন পেজ, এবং আমরা গত 6 বছর যাবৎ সামাজিক যোগাযোগ মাধ্যমে বিভিন্ন পোস্ট তথ্য সরবরাহের মাধ্যমে সামাজিক কাজে নিয়োজিত, এবং পাশাপাশি আমরা গ্র্যাজুয়েশন অ্যাওয়ার্ড করছি। ৪র্থবারের মতো আগামী মাসের 12 সেপ্টেম্বর ঢাকা ক্লাবে বিকাল 5টায় অনুষ্ঠিত হবে ৪র্থবারের মতো। আপনাদের সবাইকে আগাম দাওয়াত দিচ্ছি, আর সবাই ভালো থাকবেন। শুভকামনা রইল ডক্টর কাজী খালেদ আশরাফ স্যারের জন্য। এবং আমি চাচ্ছি কি, যদি পিছনে যদি স্টেজে যদি যাওয়া যায়, আচ্ছা অসুবিধা নেই।
So thank you. They're doing a great job. They also have an internet TV. And thank you, Shala Babu. Bye Khalid Ashraf. Next is
video
they started a new paper. So I want that group, they're also very part of our piece. So please come and show your quick all together. Say something.
শুভেচ্ছা, সম্মানিত অতিথিবৃন্দ। আমরা ফেডারেলের পক্ষ থেকে আমরা জনাব কাজী আশরাফ ভাইকে শ্রদ্ধা জানাচ্ছি। ধন্যবাদ জিয়া ভাইকে যে এমন একটা অনুষ্ঠান আয়োজনের জন্যই আমরা এখানে আসতে পেরেছি এবং সম্মাননা দিতে পেরেছি। ধন্যবাদ সবাইকে।
Thank you. I don't recognize Khalid anymore. So now a very important session, question answer session, which is Khalid, you sit here. So I'm sorry, I know we are all waiting patiently for this session. So, question about his work and comment. Very short. And important yes, done. So, any question? In the name and
Padmini is my name. So, Kazi, I ran into a piece that you wrote on the Padma for slow bleeds, I think it's what it's called, when I was in India earlier this year, and read it with interest. And the question I have for you is, whether you've had a chance to look at Robert McFarlane's book, Is a River Alive, which got a lot of attention last year, and which raises questions that may be relevant to the way you approach the Padma, but it comes about 3 years after yours was published, right? But it would be interesting, I think, if you had thoughts on how that book opens up how we might think about rivers, basically what you did.
Right. No, I haven't really looked at the book closely, but I know that came out recently. But with the title, The River is Alive. Right.
And I think it can be seen as an entity with rights and
Right.
legal rights.
Right. Oh, sure. I think the question of rights come along because the way we treat rivers. At we've been not mistreating, abusing our rivers, that is the question of rights would not come. We would not be where we are without our rivers. Historically speaking, all civilizations, all things that found here, especially in ancient times, there is no life without rivers. As we have a slogan, no river, no life. So, but I think the question of rights is a technical, jurisprudence related constitutional issue. But even without that, the question of rivers and all is a deeply intimate, ancient and existential issue. That's the way I look at it. I mean, there are right people who want to think about the protection of the environment. And the environment at large in the delta and elsewhere is that it all belongs to the rivers. The rivers, the canals, the wetlands, the other kind of water bodies. So it's an integral system. So it's not just the rivers. The river is just the beginning of things. And so I'm with that option, but my interest with the river Padma as well as the rivers is to kind of narrate the story of rivers. And rivers are stories that need to be narrated. You know, it's an imagination that happens with rivers. I mean, rivers are the most ancient trigger of imagination. Rivers and seas. So, you know, there's a French word, reverie, and I have a new term, reverie. You know, so we need to engage that. Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
I wanted to thank you for influences you've had for me for many years, starting with that exhibit at Penn on the four independence architects, and then your writings and lectures about the importance of rivers and waterways. And I teach a course at Temple in cultural landscape where these ideas, I'm just right now realizing how much they are incorporated into that course, whether it's rivers of corn, whether it's Miami that totally abused the rivers and lost all the mangroves, and the World Heritage Site of the mangroves that still exists in, I'm assuming it's the Padma ones that are the World Heritage Site.
Thank you.
So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your comment, Maria. So I have to introduce, there are many people who came, the leaders of the community. I wanted to make sure introduce them. Shushmita, she's one of the leaders of our cultural group. Saladin Ahmed, is the past president of BADV. Dr. Mustadek is a biochemist, came from North Jersey. Ali Zakir, who started a school for the immigrant children, actually, after school, which became very famous in the center city. And so we have Kabili. Eliza Kabili, he's an architect and came from Delaware. Kadiri Kibriya, stand up please. He's one of the famous singer in whole subcontinent. And also a good friend of us, he also came. Kashfi Birla and Razi, both engineers couple, came from North Jersey. Zakia and Kazi Munir, like a family member, very close to the family of Hasina and Khalid. Zakia, where are you? Okay, so people came from Chakpuri and came from Delaware. She's an amazing person. I hope I don't miss Farooq Siddiqui. Who is the head of the civil engineering in Swarthmore College, Rivers College, and he's one of the very brilliant engineers and part of the community. Always contributing significantly. Nasreen is his classmate and also sister-in-law of Razi and Kashmir. Anyway, Siddiqui family and all other new faces, I'm so grateful that we came here. Birara always cooked for us, and Sultana, our community people, Zaki Bashar Shamne. She's the rising star. She's the first one who started a children's music school. I give her credit for that, and we met all the other people. Yes. So any question from the audience, please? And Hiranmada, Achekane. Hiranmada? He was Hiranmada. Hiranmada is our big brother. He is also from Kuwait. But I don't want to ask him how old is he, because he's always young in heart. He is the president of BADV at one time. And so, that a question? Tarek Ahmed, where is Tarek? He brought drinks and also came from North Jersey. He's also a past president of BADV. And we have actually, most of the people came representing of different organizations are here. So I'm so grateful for they came and with patience. Zaki, what's the question?
The question is for Khalid. That's his nickname, by the way.
Give them the photo.
Hi.
Short question.
Yeah, I can't be too short. That's his nickname, by the way. I was very impressed by the way you introduced the idea of a river. I'm not an architect, and that was so visionary, so to speak. That's the best way to describe it. But what I'm interested in, you inspired the young people of Bangladesh, but have you seen that vision, the beginning of translation of the vision into some kind of in the building of a group of people, or at least one or two models that could be seen as a translation of what we are trying to teach the population of Bangladesh?
No, I think the way, if you mean translation into a built form, no, that doesn't happen directly, but there's all kinds of things, as I say, circulate in many ways. Before we started the Institute, I think the discourse, if you like, on cities and the discourse on cities and rivers, when that kind of established, and I think in a way the Institute promoted that, and we can claim a little bit of credit for doing that. And then I think our ideas have circulated in many ways, but now we see that a lot of other people, other architects are doing small things here and there, restoring a pond, restoring a riverside. And I think that's to their credit, but I think a little bit of movement has started, and we're very happy about that. Our ideas are much more on a larger scale, and I don't think it can happen until there's again kind of a stable governmental system. So once that happens, maybe it will. But as I said, and I'm not really wondering to make it happen right now. My idea was to trigger a thought for this discourse, as I mentioned, on rivers and cities, and that to some degree has happened.
I just want to mention one thing, Khaled. If you read his book, Old Dhaka, the old Dhaka is like the old Calcutta, small street, and he beautified it with his book. He showed it how you can, without destroying any street or any building, how you can make this Dhaka so beautiful. So actually, one of the things I can talk about Khaled, but since we don't have much time, I want to make sure that people who came here, they shared their thoughts. So, Tarikatu, you have a question you want to ask?
Yeah, I had a question. Can I have a microphone?
Yeah.
I have a very specific question about your Sirat project.
Which project?
Sirat.
I was afraid of that.
I know. My question
I should be afraid of it.
I think so, yeah. So I believe it's a teamwork. A big project is always a teamwork, but the team leader should be only one leader. For an operating room, only the surgeon will make the incision. If everybody starts making one, then the patient is dead. Now, is it a good analogy of your Sirat project?
No, to say that it's completely dead would not be right. It can be revived, resurrected. Once the idea is there, it's always there. It can be picked up with the right leadership, the right governance. Any citywide project is actually a political project. We can only serve an idea, and it has to be taken up ultimately by the leadership at the political front. And we wait for that moment. As I did the Designing Dhaka book, I did that as a compilation of visions, hoping that that leader will emerge and say, where are the ideas? And then what will you do? And so if somebody asks us, we'll say, well, here's the book. Just follow the pages. So I think Sylhet can be revived. Maybe Sadiq Bhai has something to offer.
Yeah, so I can add something. So I took Khaled to a TV program where he explained the whole project, which is beautiful, without destroying any street or anything. He showed how can we make it environmental friendly and beautified. So guess what? The mayor decided not to do it because of financial whatever reason he wanted that. So we fought. Now, he took fragments from there and made a big mess, almost basically called his project. Anyway, so I started reviving on these things. There is a new member of parliament who is also the Ministry of Business, I think. So I sent the project to them. I think Khaled is right. It's done. And resurrection and implementation is everybody's responsibility. So he's done his part, and other part is to do by people who are supposed to do it. Any other specific questions? Question one.
Well, first of all, it was an excellent presentation, Khaled. I knew you were doing a lot of things, but didn't know how much you're doing. And I really feel proud that you were our batchmate at Kuwait. Is it okay?
Yeah.
That we were classmates at Kuwait when you were in architecture. You and Milu, who was with us in college, and we were at the engineering wing. But my question is, where is Unmad these days? What's going on with that?
No, I think it has to be taken up by a younger generation. Can you hear me? Yes.
Now I can.
Unmad came out of a wilder time, more freewheeling, when we were younger, bantering, that sort of, now we're in a more disciplined mode of life. And I think it was taken up by next generation. Whereas Unmad, it still survives, it's still being published, which makes me happy. Although I would not agree with some of the content and the quality. But there's a new leadership, new editors, and new writers. One thing Unmad has done is it has cultivated new artists, in cartoons and caricature, which when I was a young student with you, at that time there was nothing, so the Unmad did that. And it's an institution of its own, but it's out of my hands.
Question?
Okay, I have a question about Dhaka City. Since you are
Introduce yourself, please.
my name is Musadi Hussain. I basically work in pharmaceutical companies, retired adjunct faculty in university. I teach molecular biology and genetics, probably farthest from what you are doing. But whenever I go to Dhaka, I stay with my mother at Dhanmondi. And every time I think about all this, how it is, buildings to your left, buildings to your right, building 5, 6 floor buildings, the back, everywhere. How to carve out a green patch among these buildings in Dhaka City? Your thoughts?
Well, so you're seeking a solution in the ruins of Dhaka city now, how to carve out a green way, a green network. Well, there are a lot of ways that can happen also within the present pattern and format of Dhaka city. That can happen. We have suggestions of streets that are given to roads. The roads have sidewalks. Every few years, the sidewalks get smaller. They carve out 6 inch over there, 6 inch over there, widen the roads, hoping that the traffic problem will be solved. But as we know, the world over, no matter how wide you make the roads, that will solve the traffic. In fact, we streamline the roads, traffic may be solved. And that has happened with other cities, including Philadelphia. So I think I've been said that before many times, we can be saved by redesigning the sidewalk, not the roads. The sidewalks can have more trees, more walking environment, and that can happen still in the conditions of Dhaka. And then there are people who have been doing, some of you may already know that the rooftop gardening in Dhaka, that's quite incredible. I think the amount of rooftop gardening, vegetable gardening and otherwise, that happens in Dhaka. And that it has a huge impact, positive impact on the environment. But those are at maybe a smaller scale, but even at larger scale, greeneries can happen. One thing are our riverbanks, and I've suggested it in many ways that, give trees to the riverbanks. Just plant trees, make it an urban forest. And even in a city like Dhaka, nobody notices there are opportunities. There are some fantastic wetlands within Dhaka city, which nobody knows about, which is a very tricky political thing, so that you don't see the wetlands, so it can be encroached upon and built upon, even in the Uttara area. There are tremendous potential for greening the city. So I can say some of these things in the context of the big city, but if you want to replan it, that's enough.
Question? Assalamu alaikum. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you, Dr. Kazi Khaleed Ashraf. আপনি আমাদের এই এলাকায় এসেছেন তার জন্য আপনাকে সুস্বাগতম। আমরা যতদূর জানি প্রথম আমার নাম শেখুর শাহ, এডিটর বাংলা নিউজ and reporter Time USA. My first question is, I know you are a successful person in your life. So what is the message for our future generation?
Your first welcome note, well, thank you very much, but I've always been in Philadelphia, so I welcome you also. It's a mutual thing. No, I don't think I see like that, success. I also don't see obstacles. Obstacles are a way of, being creative and taking it to the next round. If some of the publications that I have and some of the, what I mentioned, making the institute, making it a hub of intellectual inquiry, and at the same time sharing our ideas to the larger community in Dhaka and elsewhere. I think if those are measures of success, those are success. And I can't say I'm a successful person. I wouldn't go there. I wouldn't say it, and I have no way of measuring that. And to the younger generation, depending on which younger generation you're talking about, to my own architectural community of students and the larger students, well, inquiry. Never stop the path to inquiry. Nowadays we seek many short ways of doing things, whether because of the internet or otherwise, which is really depressing at times. Inquiry, expanding your ideas and knowledge, interaction with others, especially seek mentors. You can't do things on your own. And if it is architecture, it's a long road. You can't do that on your own at all. And it takes a while. So first of all, patience, inquiry, and open up your mind. That's what I can say.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. My second question is, আপনি এত সুন্দর একটা দেশ পেলে কেন সুজলা সুফলা বাংলাদেশে চলে যেতে চাচ্ছেন?
আপনি তো বলে দিলেন এত সুন্দর দেশ, আবার সুজলা সুফলা সুন্দর, দুটাই সুন্দর। আমার যে কোনো সুন্দরের প্রতি আমার আকর্ষণ আছে। এখন দুঃখজনক হচ্ছে যে শারীরিকভাবে আমি এক জায়গাতেই থাকতে পারি, তাই না? এই জন্য আমি বারবার ওয়ান্ডারিং করি, এটা শিল্পা বললো, which I'm translating as, you know, you can be in one place, but there are many places that you want to be. So that's why I wonder.
All right.
Hello, I'm Dr. Kazi Ahmed, working for Philadelphia Department of Public Health. I'm his wife also.
His wife.
Yes, I just wanted to say a few things. I don't have a question, but I want to thank you, Khaled, for explaining all your work so eloquently and nicely. So we are the people who are not architects, but we understand everything what you say, and that's what is your success. So I think so, and everybody will accept that part. I think you did it very nice, and I want to thank you for one more reason. Our chief guest was the first person entered in this building today before anybody else came after us.
Yes.
So thank you especially for that, and I congratulate you, and also thank you and Hasina for accepting our invitation very nicely. Thank you very much. Take care of yourself.
Hasina, come here. Local participant give feedback to Wilson. All right, I'll take one question. And Zaki had already back. So two questions, short.
আসলে আমি কোন কোয়েকশন না, আমি কথা বলার একটা সুযোগ চাচ্ছি শুধু। আমি অনেকগুলা কথা বলার জন্য আসছিলাম ওখানে, কিন্তু ওখানে আর নার্ভাস হয়ে কোনো কথা বলতে পারিনি। আপনাকে ধন্যবাদ, এবং আমি নিজেও সম্মানিত বোধ করছি এমন একটা অনুষ্ঠানে এসে। আর হচ্ছে কি, আমি ফিলাডেলফিয়া পত্রিকা থেকে, আমার নাম হচ্ছে আহমদ সায়ান নামে লিখি। আমি যে জন্য আপনার সাথে কথা বলতেছি যে আমি চাচ্ছি যে আপনার অনেকগুলা বই দিচ্ছি আমি ওখানে, এই বইগুলা থেকে আমাদের ফিলাডেলফিয়া পত্রিকা এই ফিলাডেলফিয়া থেকেই আছে, এবং আমাদের ইয়াং জেনারেশন আমাদের পড়েও এই পত্রিকা আমার পড়ে অন্য কেউ হয়তো আসবে, অন্য কেউ আসুক, এটা চাই। কিন্তু এই পত্রিকাতে আপনাদের লেখা, এবং অনেক পুরাতন, আমি 25 বছর একটা পুরাতন একটা ম্যাগাজিন দেখছি, যে ম্যাগাজিনে আমি অনেকগুলো ছবি তুলছি। আমি চাচ্ছি যে এই পত্রিকাতে আমি দেওয়ার জন্য আপনার অনেকগুলো লেখা দেখছেন এখানে, এবং আপনার মাধ্যমে আমি সবাইকে অনুরোধ করবো আমাদের পত্রিকায় লেখার জন্য, এবং পুরাতন লেখা হইলেও আমরা আমাদের পত্রিকায় নেওয়ার জন্য।
Thank you. So basically, he's the editor of the Philadelphia paper. I forgot to tell you that Khaled brought a few books, his books here. And so please take a look when you have time.
Yes, such a
And he
problem.
wanted to publish the summary of books in his paper, which is good. There's a question from the back, and then Zakia, and then we have, in the end, we want to finish it with good ending. So we have two singers, one song each, remains to their voices. Everything is ready, so first you, and then Zakia.
Thank you so much for the opportunity to speak. আমার নাম নদী, আর I just had to speak up because I got the opportunity to work with Khaleed Ashraf sir for 2 years before I moved to the US, and he has been inspiring me since I was a student of architecture, and I followed his writings, I followed Bengal Institute's works when I pursued my bachelor's thesis, which was about rejuvenating a canal next to my home. And when I was working with Sir, I saw a lot of ways Sir was planning for revival of waterways and ways the river could serve the city. The question I have for Sir now is, these processes are very much connected to the political institution. Do you think the community, if they have more control over the projects in their neighborhood, could keep the projects going despite of political changes? What are your thoughts on the power of a community in terms of getting the projects done?
Right. Thank you, Nodi. So Nodi came to Bengal Institute to work for us for 2 years. Nodi, as you translates into river. Nodi is literally. So when I saw Nodi tomoki to kuchilam. So we're looking for you, river. So she was an incredible colleague. Worked very, beautiful drawings she produced, and is a great mind, great researcher, and I'm happy she came to Penn. Now she's working for the city of Philadelphia. Now what Nodi was saying is about, how do we, it actually really comes back to this sort of things of all these, ideas. I would call them projects. They're more projective than projects. And these projective ideas are shared. And I take that sharing very seriously. And I don't think, because as I said, these projects are also political projects. But they can be, and you're right, Nodi, they can also be community projects. If the communities can take up certain segments and portions of it, some of it can be realized in some ways, and a little bit of that has happened, not that it hasn't. The other is the power of, you said the power of communities, and I would say the power of communication is also important. Bobby was telling me, speaking, going back to Dhaka, before Dhaka, I have spoken to more academic communities and my own community, but after going back to Dhaka, I don't know what kind of groups and communities I've spoken to really stubborn policymakers, I would say, meetings with mayors and ministers. And one time without my knowledge, I worked for the mayor of the city of Narayanganj, Serena had IV, and she said, went to her office, Khaled bhai ashen, আমাদের একটা meeting আছে, আপনি একটু বলবেন কিছু. I didn't realize what it was. Now when there was a public meeting, I don't know what you mean by a public meeting, there are a few thousand people, and that was my first big public meeting, political speaking, and I had to talk about plans for Narayanganj. So those are all experiences for me, and I also learned, I think the power of communication is also very important. So no matter what, you need to go out there and talk about it, persuasion if you like. So, and also, dealing with people like mayors and ministers and all that, and people with them. I think it's a person, I don't like to use the word skill, but how to deal with people, I think you need to create a sense of trust and mutual respect, which I think I've learned also.
I'm having difficulty. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm having difficulty in framing my question, Father. You really hit us with me personally with the importance of the waterway in the planning. And while watching it, a thought came to me, and I thought I must put it out to you or to the universe, that could it be that eventually if they make the transportation system, not just roads but also the waterway, it can be integrated with what Bangladesh essentially is, if that is a possibility. That's my question.
No, that's an important question. Waterways in Bangladesh are still very important for transportation and communication. I mean, throughout the country, bulk of transport happens that way, but there are roadways and all that also. In Dhaka, and we have written about it, and Nodi has worked on it also, that Dhaka is encircled by 5 rivers. So Dhaka is basically an island, and nobody conceived of it as an island. So first of all, it needs to be conceived and agreed upon that Dhaka is an island, and there's a river ring. We call it river ring. And in 2012 or so, I wrote a piece in the Daily Star about that. I mean, it's a simple idea. Other cities have done that. Bangkok has done that. There's in Calcutta of using the riverways as a mode of public transportation. But then I wrote about it. There are 3 ways of moving people around: rail, road, and river. And Dhaka is a natural infrastructure. You don't have to do much. So I can claim that, a simple idea, but within the Dhaka circle, I first started talking about it. And then much later, the government started a river-based public transportation, but it hasn't worked kind of successfully because the bus and truck authorities, they didn't want to make it successful. So there's all this thing going on. So it hasn't happened the way it should have, but it's on the way.
Pastor, we have your question.
Hello. Thank you, Jia Bhai. First of all, Professor Kazi Khaleed Ashraf, excellent presentation and deliberations. We have been listening and we noticed that you mentioned about the unending. We wish that this kind of discourse becomes, even if not unending, at least longer than we are affording here to do. So in future, we hope and wish that we will have more extended discussions. So with that note, I will tell a little bit about the Bengali because I'm Bengali. আমার রুটস সিলেটে এবং ঘটনাচক্রে সময়ের এবং রাজনীতি প্রবাহে আমরা কলকাতায় ল্যান্ড করি। সে বিখ্যাত গান সে কবুতর করে এসে কলকাতায় ল্যান্ড করেছে। তো যেটা বলার একটু ছোট্ট করে বলি যে এক নম্বর হচ্ছে যে দুইজনা বাঙালি ছিলাম, দেখো দেখি কাণ্ড খান, তুমি হইলা বাংলাদেশি, আমি হইলাম ইন্ডিয়ান। তো ঘটনাচক্রে আমরা দুই দেশের লোক, কিন্তু আমরা একই বাংলায় কথা বলি, একই ভাষায় কথা বলি, ভাবনা এবং জগৎটা আমাদের একই। সেই দিক দিয়ে দেখতে গেলে আমার প্রশ্ন যেটা সেটা হচ্ছে যে মানে উই হ্যাভ লার্নড এ লট হিয়ার অ্যাজ ওয়েল এজ বিফোর। আমি পার্সোনালি কিছু রিসার্চ করেছি এবং আমার নিজের প্রেম, কলেজ জীবনে প্রেম হচ্ছে আর্কিটেকচার। ঘটনাচক্রে আমি ইলেকট্রনিক্স অ্যান্ড টেলিকমিউনিকেশন ভর্তি হই যাদবপুর ইউনিভার্সিটিতে, পরে ছাত্র হিসেবে, পরে আইআইটি খড়গপুরেও। কিন্তু আর্কিটেকচার আমার লাভ, যে কারণে আমি এখন ইনফরমেশন আর্কিটেক্ট হয়েছি। আমি আর্কিটেকচারে যেতে যাইনি, ইনফরমেশন আর্কিটেক্ট, কিন্তু ইনার টেনেটস আর সেম। সেই হিসেবে বলি যে আমার দুটো কোয়েশ্চেন, বাট ইন দ্য ফর্ম অফ কিউরিয়াসিটি। নাম্বার ওয়ান, is there any general motif or symbolism of Bengal to identify uniquely from the architectural point of view, whereas you have a fabulous work on the unity of diversity in the Indian subcontinent, considering all Muslim architecture, other form of architecture. Even I have learned that you have done extraordinary research on the Ratha Jatra, the Rath, the architecture of that. In the context of that, what is your take on anything that we can hold on to that is a representative of Bengal architecture? For example, the heart, the Kureghar can be a form of architecture. So in our layman mind, we can think of that, okay, আমরা যদি একটা কুড়েঘর দেখে আমি বুঝি যে সেটা বাংলা। So is there any such academic and scholar representation or symbolism or motif of architecture which represents Bengal? That's the first part. Second part of the question is, I know you have done a lot of work on the hydrological aspects of Bengal. Naturally, part of the Bengal and the Sundarbani, other parts are there. So from that perspective, we know that Bengal, West Bengal and Bangladesh also have aquatic agriculture which is being experimented in rivers, in ponds and waterways. We know about hydroponics and aquaponics. What are the roles of hydroponics and aquaponics on the architecture? So these are the two basic questions. We can, if we have time, then we can continue with that. Thank you so much.
না, দুটো প্রশ্ন ছিল আপনার, থ্যাংক ইউ ভেরি মাচ। দুটোই দারুণ প্রশ্ন। একটা হচ্ছে is there an emblematic or symbolic image when it comes to Bengali architecture? There is. আপনি এটা বলেই দিলেন, the rural hut. It's not just the rural hut, it's the curvilinear shape of the roof constructed out of bamboo with thatch, which hardly anybody builds anymore these days. But that curvilinear shape, it's a beautiful shape. It's very unique to Bengal. Nowhere else. I mean, you see a roof of a building and you can know where it is from. Is it from China? Is it from Korea? Is it from Japan? Is it from Papua New Guinea? You see see that roof, you know it is from Bengal, and that's a motif, if you want to call it a motif, because then that motif, I've researched on that quite a bit. That would be a book at some point. Because that motif is not just a rural motif that becomes a monumental shape, and then in 14th and 15th century temples and mosques in Bengal, brick temples and mosques, you see that motif on the roof, on panels on the wall, but most importantly, it was picked up by Akbar's General Man Singh and taken to Western India or North India, and that became in the Mughal courts a very special object. In the Agra fort you would find and in Lahore fort you would find the Naulakha, which is a beautiful marble-shaped Bangla roof. In the Mughal courts, it was made clear that nobody else could use that roof other than the emperor. It was so special. But after that, when the motif went to Rajasthan, it was just an explosion. You go to Rajasthan, it is Bangla roof everywhere. So I think that the whole circulation of the Bangla roof is a tremendous story, and that's the motif we are talking about. And in terms of agricultural practices, we did a recent research project for the British Council in Bangladesh. The typical sustainable architectural practices. We do that because we need the grant money. But I'm kind of wary of sustainable architectural practices. We wanted to expand the idea and not hold on to buildings as architecture, but also living practices. For example, in the south of Bangladesh, there is a practice of floating farms. You know that, where people actually, because when the water comes in, there's no land, but so what? We'll make that would be more. You can say hydroponic style. This beautiful long stretch of floating platform on which they grow vegetables. So I think those needs to be recorded, and those are incredible innovations, and just normal common people are making it. There's no architect involved there, but that is architecture also.
Hello, sorry, thank you. So there is a car named Palki, Delaware. Pico, I think it's look like Pico. So you have to move it, thank you. So we're going to finish because I wanted to test your patience. So I want you to acknowledge Sabiha. Stand up, please. So Sabiha, young lady, so she came, she's a champion. So Sabiha, her husband did PhD from Temple in chemistry. Sabiha became a social worker. She did an amazing thing. She got $1 million grant for the homeless or to feed elderly and so many things. So I've never seen someone who is working so diligently, and I'm so glad she came. Thank you, Sabiha, for coming. আর কোনো প্রশ্ন না থাকলে I want to first Tarek bhai to come to the stage for your song. Tarek bhai. Kibar bhai আপনি next.
One more question. Tarek, please.
We have tea and snacks and sweets. You can have multiple things.
Well, I'm sorry? Oh yes, I will. But first I shall have to say that this is my little brother, Dr. Zia, and he's the only one, so I have to listen to him. That's why I'm here. And
he specifically told me which song I should sing. That's a prayer song, and typically for the prayer songs in churches and temples are that we pray to the divine entity, give us this, give us that. But this is kind of opposite. Now the divine entity is telling us, why are you looking for me? I'm right next to you. So that is the theme of the song.
मोको कहा ढूंढ रे बंदे मैं तो तेरे पास में ना तीरथ में ना मूरत में ना एकांत निवास में ना तीरथ में ना मूरत में ना एकांत निवास में ना मंदिर मेरा मस्जिद में ना मंदिर मेरा मस्जिद में ना काशी कैलाश में मैं तो तेरे पास में ना मैं जप में ना मैं तप में ना मैं जप में ना मैं तप में ना मैं व्रत उपवास में ना मैं क्रिया कर्म में रहता ना मैं आद सन्नास में ना तीरथ मेरा मूरत में ना एकांत निवास में खोजियो का तुरंत मिल जाएंगी एक पल की तलाशों में कहे कभी सुनो भाई साधन मैं हूँ तेरे विश्वास में। Thank you.
Next time.
বনে নিরন্তর অনন্ত আনন্দ ধারা। আমি প্রায় 6 মাস পরে প্রথম গান গাইছি। 4 দিন হসপিটালে থেকে এসেছি, শরীরটা আসলে খুব খারাপ, গান করতে পারিনি। সাদেক ভাই বললেন আসতে হবে, কথা ফেলতে পারি না। বাজে অসীম নভ মাঝে বাজে অসীম নভ মাঝে জাগে অগুণ্য রবি চন্দ্র তারা বহে নিরন্তর অনন্ত আনন্দ ধারা বহে নিরন্তর অনন্ত আনন্দ ধারা। ব্রহ্মাণ্ড রাজ্যে পরম এক সেই রাজেন্দ্র রাজ্যে ব্রহ্মাণ্ড রাজ্যে পরম এক সেই রাজেন্দ্র রাজে বিস্মিত নিমেষ হাত বিশ্ব চরণে বিনত বিস্মিত নিমেষ হাত বিশ্ব চরণে বিনত লক্ষ শত ভক্ত চিত বাক্য হারা বহে নিরন্তর অনন্ত আনন্দ ধারা বহে নিরন্তর অনন্ত আনন্দ ধারা।
অনেক ধন্যবাদ। বিকজ অফ খালেদ আমি 2 জন মানুষকে রিকোয়েস্ট করেছি। ইউ প্রবাবলি নো দ্যাট Kipriya, who just sang, he is actually a national award recipient, 21 পদক প্রাপ্ত। Also during Bangladesh Liberation War there was a Shatin Bangla Betar Kendra, there is a radio station, and Kimre Bhai was one of the participants. Very, very honored. Saladin Ahmed Tarek Bhai, in BADV যত অনুষ্ঠান প্রথম থেকে এখন পর্যন্ত, he's the only one who has given continuous support to any organization in this area. Not only singing and training them, but also fixing the microphones and everything. So I'm very honored both of them came and sang for us for this event. এখন I want Hasina Chaudhary to come here and give vote of thanks. Thank you, Shaban and Jolie and your crew for helping us, and all the volunteers from God knows everywhere came and spontaneously supported this. Thank you.
Hello. I'm so moved. Thank you so much for being here. My deepest gratitude to each and every one of you who came today, and especially those who do not know Kazi Khaleed Ashraf. You spared your Sunday to be here. You know, your participation and your presence made this a memorable one. And my special thanks to Dr. Zia Ahmed and Bokul Bhagi for putting this whole thing together. He was, as you all know, Sadiq Bhai, when he puts his mind to something, he is relentless in his pursuit till it's get done. 2 weeks ago, he called me and he said, I have decided I'm going to do this with the help of Bangladesh community, and all you have to do is invite your friends. That had been my only contribution to this event. I just invited my friends, that's about it. He single-handedly did everything, from the minutest details. Like, I have to share one thing. I volunteered that I will bring the projector. He asked me, and I said, okay, let me look around. And I texted him and said, oh, I have arranged the projector. And of course, yesterday, Saturday evening, I get a call from my friend, you know who, and he said, oh, I don't have the projector, and I don't have access to a projector. So I was thinking what to do. So then I didn't want to disturb him because I know he had been busy putting all this together. And so I called him and I said, I don't have a projector. So he said, let me look around. Don't worry about it. If you don't have it, we'll just get it from Best Buy. And that was it, you know. For him, everything was cool. I don't know if it was really cool for him or not, but he was pretending to be, oh, everything is under control. So, and that's how he operates, you know. So I really thank you on behalf of Kazi Khaleed Ashraf that you showed so much love and your belief in his work, that you felt that this was an important event that had to happen. Having said that, Kazi Khaleed Ashraf, being his wife and having lived with him for all these years, he's someone who does what he wants to do. And he does not like any kind of fanfare. He does not go for recognition, or he does not go for fanfare. He just likes to do things quietly. So I have to say, like, for him, this whole event and everybody focusing on his work and everything is kind of little uncomfortable, I can tell, like for him, because he just likes to do things quietly. So that's what I wanted to add. But thank you again. Thank you, all of you. I am humbled. Thank you.
Hasina didn't realize it. It's our privilege and pleasure to listen to Khaled, what he has done, so we can get all inspired and can feel comfortable that we have a person. We can go to Bangladesh and stay for 10 years. He did. Thank you, Khaled, for all the work, and we always cherish your work with our, and whatever your vision is, you keep doing, we'll be with you. So, Ali Zakir ran home and he rushed back with the gift, he wants to give it to Khaled. Khaled, unfortunately, you have to come here again. Ali Zakir, amazing story. He was an illegal immigrant. He started saying that Bangladeshi children are in the street, not going to the school. Why? Because people may not know that Bangladesh got lottery visa, because during Pakistan, there's so many people from Pakistan, but nobody was from Bangladesh. So people, lottery means anybody from village with no, forget about English, no proper Bengali, they were actually dropped. There was no support. Ali Zakir told us that, and ultimately with all our help, he started as a after school teaching to the students. They were not going to the school. So teacher from Penn, from students from all over our community went to his house. 20 years in his house was 5 days filled with students. And Farooq Siddiqui was one of the main speakers. Salahuddin Ahmed, my brother, 12 years he came from New Jersey to taught children. So this is very important. Within 1 year, the Philadelphia Eagle used to give 15 bicycles to the best math students.
Oh yes, I remember that one.
13 of them got from this school. Maybe they flunked in English, but later on, most of them going to the magnet school and Ivy school. So Ali Zakir starting from the scratch with his family support. Where is he? Come here. You need a medal too, but you are giving medal to Khaled. So I want Salahuddin Ahmed and Farooq Siddiqui, two great teachers of Ali Zakir school. Nowadays, he's so smart. Now Penn and Drexel say to their undergraduate that you have to have some credit. So he is now one-to-one teaching by Penn and Drexel students. He doesn't need us, but when they were there, they're not only teaching students, but they're also teaching culture, Independence Day, a lot of things that unfortunately they're missing. But anyway, Ali Zakir and Nazleen, she's the mother.
She's the driving force of the whole thing.
Assalamu alaikum. আসলে ডক্টর জিয়াউদ্দিন আহমেদ উনি আমাদের অত্যন্ত শ্রদ্ধার এবং আমাদেরকে এই ভালো কাজে উৎসাহিত করার জন্য একজন। আমি ওনাকে 93 থেকে চিনি এবং ওদের পাঠশালার যে লিঙ্ক এই সবার সাথে উনি আমাদেরকে সম্পর্ক করে দেয়। আজ আমরা 23 ইয়ার্স ওদের প্রফেসর করলাম। অনেক ধন্যবাদ।
Thank you, Jackie. Another success, Ali Zakir Khaleed Ashraf in this community, Center City, West Philadelphia, when the children needed the most. This school did a great job. Thank you so much. I have
We still have some time if you want to run out and get some more gifts. Don't press your luck.
So, I'm so glad that our whole community realized that the Khaleed Ashraf is giving a talk today and they wanted to, most people couldn't come, but they all know. Anyway, so last, okay. Oh, there's a message sent from Florida. but I think it's too much for you guys because so we can send it to you privately. But that was a beautiful message by two architects, your students. Yeah? So just before that, I want to make sure I forget. Jolly Dash is sitting there. She wanted me to remind you all that she's starting the book fair next Friday. Yeah, so everyone is invited. All right, so thank you so much.